So just a few months after the last season finished, we are back and we are ready to go racing once again in 2021. Before the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing kicks off, we have ourselves the Porsche All-Stars, and that's where we start our journey here today at the Autódromo Jose Carlos Pace, better known as Interlagos. My name's Will Vincent, and joining me here for the entire season is Matchman. You might know him a little bit better, of course, as Sadakis. And Matt, it is great to have you here for the entire season, both for the All-Star season, but also in terms of the Super Cup as well.
Yeah, super fun to be here. I think this is the most competitive sim series on the planet. I've always been a fan of the Porsche Cup series, the Super Cup series worldwide, both real life and obviously now virtual with the Porsche Heuer Esports Super Cup. So yeah, going to be a ton of fun. I think this is the perfect way to start it as well, Will. Warm everybody up with a bit of fun, the influencers, the less talented, shall we say. But I'm not the Matt we should be focusing on, because each week we're going to have a celebrity Porsche factory driver. And this week it's Matt Campbell that's actually going to be in the server with these guys. That's going to be one of the great things. We've got ourselves 12 drivers who are what we like to call all-stars. They're influencers who have made their name on the esports scene, and on top of that, we'll also have ourselves a Porsche works driver or two or three joining us every single race. And I think, Matt, that's going to be interesting. The very interesting thing, you talk about warming things up, but also here at Interlagos, and this track, as we know, can get very, very warm. Very warm, and it's the hardest thing to manage in iRacing. Braking in terms of driver input, but in doing so, the tires. And that's going to be a big issue. Certainly into turn one, you've got so much speed. You've got to get it slowed down. If you lock up at all there, you're going to understeer in turn two, and that's going to create a problem into turn three, all the way down the straight, and you're going to lose a lot of time. So we'll see who can get that right. I've seen a bit of the timing sheets from practice. I don't want to spoil too much, but it's pretty spread out, more so than what we'll see a little bit later on in PESC, for sure. Indeed. So this is a look at your schedule. So the first three rounds of the championship, they'll be in the 911 GT3 Cup car, the 991, depending on how you want to call it. Interlagos, Barcelona, and Imola. The next two rounds at Silverstone, Road Atlanta, and Montreal, they'll be in the 718 GT4 Cayman car. The next two rounds will be at Spa-Francorchamps, in the Nürburgring, and Le Mans in the 911 RSR GTE car. The final round at Monza, well, we'll get to that when we get to there. The final round of the championship, that will likely be a fan vote, or will give you more information as we get towards April 24. April 24, ironically, Matt, is my birthday, and we might even have a special surprise when we get to my birthday on April 24. Are you going to be racing? Is that what you're saying? Are you going to jump in? You don't want to see me racing, let's be honest. I'll be about 10 seconds off the pace. What? I mean, I expect cyanide to be worse today, so you never know. Maybe you'll fit right in. Look, I love that we've got a different car throughout for these guys, because it's a great way to showcase Porsche. It's a great way to showcase the variety within iRacing, and it does cover a bunch of different speed as well as skill sets. Obviously, you've got a very fast RSR, you've got the Porsche Cup, which is as raw as it gets, and the GT4, which is more of a momentum car in terms of the other two. So different driving styles definitely needed. Emily Jones, of course, she was the winner of the first Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup All-Star race. But you make a very good point there, Matt, because, you know, she won in the GT3 car. As we work ourselves into our format here today, we've made some changes since last October, as we now look at our track here at Interlagos. But more importantly, as we go through the season, as we work ourselves through these different cars with a 15-minute sprint race, and of course the fully inverted field for the feature race, as we go through these three different cars, the 911 Cup car, the Cayman GT4, and then the RSR car, that's going to make things very interesting as to how can you work yourself through the field if you win the first race. Yeah, absolutely. But for today, at least, it's only 13 cars. It's not super dense. I mean, if, let's say we did this in PESC, you've got 40 drivers in the grid. It would be a little messy. But either way, I still think it's going to be chaotic. As we said, there's a bit more of a spread, and I use the word talent maybe lightly in some cases in this race. It means there's going to be probably some three-wide moments. The first couple laps are going to be about staying clean, getting yourself through the field, certainly if you're one of the faster guys. And I think that's exciting too, though, right? This is what we want. I said at the start, this is the perfect warm-up for the show. This is all the fun. Let's get it out of the system and be entertained. And then we'll get into the very, very serious race a little bit later on too.
It all starts with qualifying, and that's what's coming up next here in the Porsche All-Stars race. And qualifying in these races is going to be important because it does give you the advantage for the first race. So these drivers will have 3 laps to go as fast as they can over a 10-minute period. The only difference will be, of course, when we go to the Nürburgring Nordschleife later on in the year, when things will be a little bit different. We'll talk about that as we get through the season. And of course, at Circuit de la Sarthe as well, when you can't do 3 laps in 10 minutes, even in a Porsche. As much as I'd love you to be able to go that fast, it just simply isn't possible. So, at Interlagos, however, the track, because it's so short here, it does give you the opportunity, if you do mess up that first lap, it does give you the opportunity to maybe just withdraw a little bit and then think about how you do things like second trying run, as we're looking now at Matt Campbell in that 911 car on your screen. 911, of course, because he is a Porsche Works driver.
Absolutely, yeah. Deserves to be in the factory livery. He's a little more, well, I suppose he's adept in all of their machines, and he's certainly no stranger to a cup car. A little bit more adept in something like a GT3 or an RSR. Maybe when we get later on in the season, he'll join us for that too. But you're absolutely right. It's a shorter track. These cars, we mentioned tires, they will last the duration of these races, no problem. But it's about management. In terms of qualifying, in terms of dialing them in, the second lap is actually seemingly the fastest for most drivers that we've seen across the field. So I would, as you say, yes, you can get a second lap in because it's a shorter lap. I would almost be doing my first flyer lap as the banker and then carrying that momentum and just doing 2 back-to-back if you could.
As we look on board, the Vodafone on board with Matt Campbell right now as he heads himself down in towards turn 4 and turn 5. So interesting to note, Matt, that in terms of the rules for this race, these drivers are allowed in qualifying to push wide if they want to down at turn 4, turn 5. But, of course, iRacing has its own software that will say that you've gone too far off the white line and will give you an off-track penalty. So race control are not limiting these drivers if they do go off-track, but of course the iRacing software may do so by itself.
Yeah, and you've already touched on it. Turn 4 and 5, it's 2 different corners, and if you look at the track map, there is a straight line between them. It's kind of one corner, the way the drivers look at it. It's an increasing radius, so your hands never get straight. You can very easily overdo the entrance to 4 and therefore run out and get an X. The other spots to watch up the hill out of turn 6, if you're really pushing and the rear steps out as the car gets light at the crest, you can end up too far at the curb. And I'm not sure we will see it so much with these guys, but when we do get into the pro drivers later on, coming out of where we're looking right now in turn 3, you can carry a little bit too much speed. And if you go just too far outside that exit curb, it'll give you one there as well. So there's kind of 3 spots to watch for. The 4th can be the entrance to the final corner when you head up the hill at Juncal, but it's very dependent on your entry.
I will say immediately, this is the best looking car of the series.
Oh, it looks fantastic.
It's phenomenal. The geodesic racing car that we're looking on right now, and that is, of course, the number 41 car, as just working himself through Ferradura, down 48 car even, working himself through Ferradura, now down into the twisty technical infield section here at Interlagos. This track at one point was the most demanding track in all of Formula One. The track has been slowed down and modified since then, but it's still one of the most demanding circuits that either Formula One drivers or GT races ever go to, because it's an anti-clockwise circuit. That's the first thing, of course. We're just looking at the point where Kimi Räikkönen decided to go and do a bit of off-road driving back in 2000 and something. But
his rally career was missed.
It was. But this track still being anti-clockwise in the normal world, this is still one of the most punishing racetracks that you can go to.
Yeah, and certainly in Formula One, the big thing with that is neck strain and the downforce. It's still certainly true in other cars. Fortunately, in a GT car, I'll be the first to admit it, you're gonna have a full bolstered seat now. The Porsche Cup cars certainly do. You can rest your head against it. I've done it. It's probably not good form, but every now and then you just put your head against it when you need to stay a little more secure in the seat. The other thing is you've got the dead pedal as well, so you can actually push yourself and firmly. Obviously, you're gonna be left foot braking. Sim, this doesn't really apply, but in real life, you'd also push yourself into that dead pedal and really anchor yourself in the seat. So it's not as demanding, but it certainly is a different rhythm, and you're absolutely right. It plays on the body. The biggest thing that's also technical about this track, and I absolutely love this about any circuit, is undulation and elevation changes, and not just an up and a down, but the way that it flows through the landscape. And this is one of the best tracks in the world for that. You're up, down, it loops in itself a lot, but it does it so well.
We're just looking at Jimmy Broadbent, and ironically, Jimmy Broadbent has a very similar car livery to Emily Jones. I'm wondering if Jimmy Broadbent is trying to get some of that Australian vibes there from Emily, because if you look at the two cars side by side, they look almost identical. Jimmy Broadbent right now is 7th place in terms of qualifying. Emily Jones is in P number 4. However, we're looking right now at the number 22 car of Maxime as she works herself down the back straightaway in towards that turn 4, 5, 6 complex that we talked about. That number 22 car, well, it's nice and it's blue and black there with the nice logo on. We're going to go on board of her in just a moment's time, but Maxime right now all the way down in P number 12. She's got a bit of work to do. This is going to be a final lap in qualifying.
Yeah, 22 is probably not a bad number to have on the car. If I'm not wrong, that was actually Sebastian Job's number last year in the PESC series. So he obviously left as the champion. Maybe there's something in that. It looks like she's actually going to abandon the Vodafone onboard lap because either she's happy or unhappy. We'll have to decide with her result. As you say, she's down in 12th place currently. We did say there's 13 on the grid. My favorite driver to pick on. Big spin from Quick Gabby. Not so quick in the back end of the car. The front, maybe a little slow to come around. Cyanide, we've not seen a lap from him. Obviously, Amir Thacker, a lot of you guys would know him. Does a ton of streaming, ton of sim racing. He's just moved house. I said he would have excuses. He's just moved house. He's just set up his sim. Hopefully he's not having a technical issue and can actually get a lap in for qualifying.
You're making excuses for him, aren't you?
Look, he's going to do it either way, so I'm just getting them out of the way so we can depower them now.
Okay.
That way we can just get harder on him when it matters.
A minute left in qualifying. As it stands right now, the 911 car, our works driver of Matt Campbell, is leading the way by a tenth and a bit of a second over Dan Suzuki. We're on board, the Vodafone on board right now of Dan Suzuki as he works himself up next to the cell, down through turn number 15. This corner is basically called the toilet corner. Down at turn number 15, actually he comes on towards pit road, so no lap going to be set by him. That's going to be his last lap in qualifying. He will start no higher than second place on the grid. So just a couple of moments left in qualifying, and it's a Porsche works driver of Matt Campbell.
Yeah.
So he's going to be starting at the front, and this is going to be a big thing for the season because, of course, we're going to expect to see at least one Porsche works driver throughout the season running these events. They will be eligible for the championship, but this is going to be fun.
And Porsche's got a fantastic group of drivers signed to their stable. So we'll see some very talented names. Matt Campbell, absolutely one of them. You think back to Bathurst, I think, 2 years ago, stunning drive there. I'm not familiar with him in sim per se. Obviously, in the last year especially, we've seen a ton of real-world drivers coming over because COVID. Obviously, there's been a lot of stuff going on. And Matt Campbell takes pole. So awesome debut for him in the series.
Indeed, let's run ourselves then through your starting grid for the first of our races here in the Porsche All-Stars part of the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup, powered by iRacing for 2021. And at the front of your field, it is the Porsche works driver. That is Matt Campbell in the number 911 car. Alongside him, front row of the grid is Dan Suzuki, 1 minute 36.017. Xavier Heikki 360 will be on P number 3 with Emily in P number 4 as we look ourselves back through the grid right now. It's an interesting grid, I'm not going to lie to you here, Matt, and it's going to be very fun to see how these drivers will get off the starting line and work themselves through the first couple of laps, in particular because of the fact that the Senna S at the start of this lap we can brake oh so late.
Yeah, you definitely can, but you can overdo it. Like I said, you lock the front, so you're going to push in turn 2. You'll see some very cool technique a little bit later on with the way that they're short shifting, but using the downshift to help rotate the rear so that you're not getting too much locking on the front brakes. You're letting the rear end kind of diff lock a bit. Not sure we'll get to that level here, but hey, Matty Campbell might, the way he was looking. Phenomenal qualifying. And this is going to be super exciting. Jimmy's mid-grid. We'll see if all that sim experience gets him through in the racecraft.
Track temperature is 42 degrees centigrade right now. The wind direction is to the east. Humidity is 61%. You expect that at a track like Interlagos. And of course, these drivers are all using exactly the same setup. So there's no setup to come into play here. They're all using exactly the same thing. They're all ready to go racing for the first of 2 races here. 15 minutes will be the first of our 2 races, and we are underway as we like to go out, and Matt Campbell gets himself a very good start from the front of your field on the outside in towards turn number 1, but Dan Suzuki was looking down to the inside as they worked through the centre S for the first time. All the drivers have got themselves, for the most part, single file. We've got 1 car, 2 cars turned around at the rear of your field. I think that's RI there, who's got himself an issue at the very rear of the field, and maybe Jimmy Broadbent.
I think we've lost Jimmy. Yeah, I think Jimmy went around in that, so never mind what I said about racecraft. You mentioned he had the similar livery to Emery. She's looking aggressive right now as well. Quick Gabby just in front. They've been side by side on 2 occasions, and that's common. If you're going to see a battle in 2 and 3, it carries itself down the straight. Emery's forced wide. She'll run it, but she'll take the inside heading up the hill in turn 6, and that should make this a done deal for her. The bigger question is Yardier, who's sitting just behind. Ooh, Gabby went to go have another move, nearly cut the nose off of him.
Yeah, Yardier is being very aggressive at the start of this race. We're on board with him right now. The Vodafone Replay, Vodafone onboard even, as like number 10 car is running right on the rear of Gabby as they work themselves down on the exit of this infield section down towards Yunsao for the first time in this race. Don't forget, 15 minutes is going to be race number 1, then a fully inverted field for race number 2, our 20-minute feature. Emily Jones very wide there on the exit of Yunsao as they now work themselves from this very fast, high-speed, flat-out section up towards the start-finish line. But out front, it is still Matt Campbell leading the way. As you can just see there, the 911 leading the way. Second place is going to be Dan Suzuki, and then it's going to be Heki, who's running in 3rd place, with Emery in 4th. Here's a replay there, down towards turn number 1. This is Jimmy Broadbent in towards the center rest, and well, he lost it all by himself there.
Yeah, it got too much on the front curb, and it just rotated the car so quickly and easily to do. Cold tires at the start, definitely a factor, but yeah, I'm afraid to say, Jimmy, that was just a bit clumsy. I think we've got another spinner in the back. Will Ford, it appears to be on the timing screens that's gone around, perhaps.
Yep. And of course, for all you Jimmy Broadbent fans watching, don't tune out, because of course, as it stands right now, Jimmy is starting P number 2 in our feature race because the entire field will be inverted. So even though Jimmy is out of things as it is right now, if he was to finish where he is right now, he will start P number 2 for our feature race a little bit later on. P number 3 is actually just overtaken the number 3 car of Will Ford to move himself up into P number 11. We're still looking at this battle out front. This is Dan Suzuki, the number 48 car, who is now about 0.8 of a second behind the work driver of Matt Campbell. As we just have a look here at a Vodafone Replay in towards turn number 1, and I believe this is going to be Will Ford here.
Yeah, I said we lost him on the timing screens for a second. This might explain why. Actually wasn't. Wow, does he lose it on the grass? Nah, he does well. He drives out of it. Got a little deep. You'll notice as okay, rejoining almost went around, but yeah, lost time. Just kept it straight at least, so it's not the worst scenario for him. And like you say, the reverse grade can work back through. I just wanted to note, when we saw that replay, it was a great camera angle of the entry to turn 1, the cars coming on. And you'll notice here they're staying well within the confines of the painted lines. Keep that in mind when we switch over to the Pro Series a little bit later on, because the Tag Heuer Esports Supercup guys will be using that exit right to the wall to just try and widen the entry into turn 1. It's the little things that make a huge difference.
Yeah, and of course, there is race control both for this series and also the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup powered by iRacing. But let's be honest here, man. We're a little bit more lenient in terms of this series compared to what we're going to see in about an hour's time.
Rightfully so. Look, this is a bit of fun. It's already good fun. I mean, I just want to point out as well, Yardier, there's a group chat, obviously, for these things, and within that chat, he's been harping on Cyanide all week, and I said, leave Cyanide alone. Leave that to me. I'll take care of him. But honestly, he's keeping up, considering he didn't get a qualifying time in, hasn't had much practice due to moving house. He's just sitting there, what, 6 seconds back of the RDA at this point in time, already up to 8th from the back of the grid. That's pretty good. I mean, he's keeping it safe. That's the main thing.
We've seen some banter, let's be honest, we've seen some banter over the last couple of weeks, over the Christmas period, between these drivers. Of course, they ran most of them back in October. They're running again here for the entire season. They'll be joined by a Porsche work driver throughout the season. So you're going to see Matt Campbell here today. He's not necessarily going to be the driver in that 911 car over the course of the season. We've got other drivers who will come into play. By the way, hurdle there by the number 23 car. So Hickey gets the fastest lap on the race so far. He's only 1.2 seconds behind your race leader. And all of a sudden, it looks like that number 23 car, the lovely yellow, black, and red car, is putting that pressure on Dan Suzuki.
Yeah, absolutely is. Your favorite was Emery coming into this. She's at least got by quick Gabby. We saw that move early on, but she's hanging in there, sitting in 4th position. If these guys start to fight, if Heike gets a little bit too close to Dan Suzuki, maybe there's contact, she might be able to capitalize. And I love the way that you said Matt Campbell is joining us for this race. I think they're joining him because everyone's trying to keep up with him at this point in time. It's only a 1 second gap, but it's pretty consistent. And that purple lap was only 0.06 faster than his last Matt Campbell's lap.
Yeah, indeed. So as we're having a look then, a battle for number 5 on track as well with Gabby and Jarnier. They are separated by about 0.3 of a second on track right now. So this is going to be very interesting because I always thought like, of course, Gabby's new to the series. She didn't run back in October, but she is running now in 2021. Jardier we did see back in October, but this is one of those battles that I really did think was going to be exceptional over the course of the season. The company separated by about half a second on track, and then between Jardier and Diplo is about 3.5 seconds. So you got yourselves basically a 6-car breakaway at the top of your field, and after that you've got more of a gap between these drivers. We're on board right now with the 911 car of Matt Campbell as he works himself through the center S and into the curve of the soul once again. And the Porsche works driver is just putting his flex on, shall we say. He's up to now 1.4 seconds. He's gained himself about half a second in the last 2 laps.
Watch the background though. A little bit wide by Dan Suzuki, and that's going to allow the draft. This is exactly what we talked about. Emery can capitalize if these two start to squabble too much, and that's going to be an X as well. Getting that wide on the exit leaves the door. Good racing room, good respect, you have to say, by Dan Suzuki, but he still has the inside as they enter into the turn 6 complex, and that should be enough to get him up the hill. Maybe a chance for an undercut if he pushes too hard. Under braking, does he send it? This might be the chance. Bit deep, I think. I don't think he can get in there without a little bit of contact, so probably wise to stay out of it, but that's exactly the battle. Just now look at Emery. She's all over the back of him. The beneficiary of this is actually Matt Campbell. He just got 0.8 on them.
And ironic, probably what they want to do is get themselves past Matt Suzuki first and then try and hunt down Matt Campbell, because it looks to me that Suzuki is playing the role of Yarno Trulli, being the Trulli train right now, and then you've got yourselves Pike 360 and Emery right behind. Even Gabby's coming into play right now in P5. So we are getting ourselves a train going on. This is helping one man, Matt Campbell, to pull away, because he's now always 2 seconds ahead of the 48 car. But behind, it's getting really close side by side in towards the center S. Vodafone on board right now in towards turn number 1 is... Oh, it's so close, but Heike couldn't get the job done through the center S. He's now going to have a second chance. And Emily's got a great chance as she works herself out of the soul.
Yeah, absolutely. She sat back perfectly there, did exactly what you need to do. If they're going to limit their and make their entry more shallow, she's got the run down the straight, not quite close enough. I thought she might get more, specifically on Heike, because he was so tight. Oh, he's a huge oversteer. That's got to be surely. I think she had to get out of it. I think she had to actually avoid contact. Yeah. Otherwise, you would have expected her to just soar around the outside.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can pass it to Ferradura, turn number 6 in this racetrack, but I think Emily had to get off the noisy pedal there in order to avoid running into the rear of the number 23 car. And actually, Emily, she's just gone around. She has just gone around. She lost it down at Ferradura there. So the number 51 car, one of the favourites coming in of Emery, has had an incident down at turn 6 and turn 7. And because of that, she's now down into P5. I'm wondering, does she have some damage?
That's going to be a tricky thing. For the record, and I don't think this is warranting of it, there is one fast repair, but you have to drive the car back to pits under your own power. I'm sure we're going to look back at that in the Vodafone Replay just now. I didn't think there was helping. Gabby did get inside a little late. She did get a little tap. Yeah, so Gabby kind of showed the nose. Probably should have got out of it a little more, and maybe Emery could have got away with leaving a bit of space, but ultimately I'd put that one on Gabby.
Yeah, so Gabby is still down at P6, so she still is behind Emily Jones right now as they battle out for P5. But what this does mean is it's now a 2.5 second gap between Matt Campbell and Dan Suzuki. Third place is Heike 360 and fourth place is Jardier. But we're looking right now at this battle going on for second place, and we will hopefully go on board with Heike 360 in just a moment's time. Just to remind you, by the way, that these drivers are not running for prizes themselves, they're running for prizes for their community. And 200 iRacing credits will go out to whoever wins, gets the most points in the races here today, to their community. 100 iRacing credits in second place and 50 iRacing credits for third. So I think that's a cool thing as well. So they're not running for themselves. These guys are big influencers. Let's be honest, Seneca, they've got the YouTube monies, etc. coming in. So actually they're running to get themselves some prizes for their community.
Which I think is also really fun, because now there's a vested interest from the respective fans as well, which is brings it a bit more banter and rivalry among them. Speaking of perhaps the most influential of them in terms of the sim world, Jimmy Broadbent, he's made a bit of a recovery. He's got my cyanide now, and he's up to 8th place. Remember, he had the spin. Lap 1, turn 1, you can't win the race in the first corner, you can lose it, but he's back halfway through the field. 6 second gap to the next place in front, but we'll see if he can close that down. 3 minutes and 40 seconds left, maybe not, but again, we've got the reverse grid coming up. That'll put him pretty much the same position he started in this time. Speaking of time, watch turn 1. Again, so close is Heike, but being very mindful, and I have to say, the racing between these two has actually been quite respectful.
It's going to be a good run, actually, out of Curve du Sol right now between these two drivers, and it just seems to me that Heike gets a very good run out of Curve du Sol, but just can't do anything in towards turn number 4. Here he's going to show the nose into turn 4, and again, he doesn't want to be too aggressive. I think he understands the fact that, this is a championship, but as he say that, Suzuki won so wide down into turn 5.
And that's a perfect case of showing aggression. He had no intention to actually send it up the inside, but because of the contact between Gabby and Emery, there's space behind. So now he can afford to be a little more playful and more aggressive with the guy in front. Gets deep, shows the nose, kind of sells the dummy, if you will. That causes him to outbrake himself. Dan Suzuki goes deep, and he's got the place. So huge crops as we're going to look back at it. And you can see exactly this. Watch on the Vodafone Replay. Dan Suzuki just misses it. He's just too deep and just loses the rear, trying to turn him with too much speed in the car.
I feel like I want to sing a Sum 41 song right now, but instead, I'm just going to say that is a mess up there all by himself by Dan Suzuki under pressure when he had the opportunity to stay where he was. And because of the fact that Heike 316, that number 23 car, was behind and alongside, that's obviously needs to make the move. But just being in the wing mirrors and just being alongside just for a moment, that's what upsets the psyche of other drivers around you, and that's what causes unforced errors.
Absolutely, yeah, totally right. And like I say, Heike was very smart about it because he couldn't afford to be that aggressive and cost himself entry speed when there was 2 cars quickly waiting to capitalize on the battle in front. But with that space, he's taken perfect advantage of it. Ooh, spin again. That's Gabby. Second incident for her in this race. Watch the rejoin. They'll get around clean.
Yeah, and of course, there was an incident with Emily Jones earlier on in this race. This is her second incident of the day, running in P7. She gets out in P7. She's got a 5 second gap to Jimmy Broadbent, but that car doesn't look to be too healthy.
Just to note as well, Boosted Media, Will, lots of you guys will know him, does some phenomenal reviews on YouTube. He did actually have to take a pit stop, so I'm not sure if he had to do a fast repair or not, but that's why he's so far down in the order. He is running again now, but we'll see him on the pole perhaps. Well, I'd say almost guaranteed at this point in the next race. This battle's not done, Will. This is on still for second place.
It is indeed. Vodafone Replay coming up for you. This is going to be down in towards turn number 1. This is going to be Gabby in towards that first corner alongside Emily Jones, and it looks as though they're not going to, they made very slight contact, but Gabby there gets turned around, doesn't actually hit the wall, so I thought there's going to be some damage to that car, but it's not going to be damage to that car. More a case of a bruised ego there for Gabby as she runs in P number 7. And this could be one of those interesting storylines between Emily and Gabby over the course of the season, because they've been very close in terms of times throughout the practice sessions and the warm-ups that we've seen.
Yeah, this could develop into a little rivalry between the two of them. But again, this is battle for second place. Yardier's just been sitting back this whole time. He's now the one that sits in the hot seat because this is not done up front. And you thought Heike would break away. He looked like he had the pace, but well done to Dan Suzuki. And I'm loving this. This is exactly the kind of battle we want to see to warm up the day. I will say Matty Campbell has pretty much checked out at the front with all of the incidents behind, as well as this battle that's been going on. But yeah, still a podium up for grabs, and it's the exact same problem in return. It is, and wide goes Dan Suzuki, or excuse me, rather Heike, and Dan Suzuki this time, the one that slips up the inside. Same corner, same incident, reverse drivers.
And you now see also Jardier trying to go around the outside of Caradura, not quite able to do so. But yeah, the favour has been returned there. 2 incidents, and actually look at this, a number 23 car of Heike just going so far inside into turn number 7. That will give the number 10 car, Jardier, 3rd place here. So it's all kicked off in the last lap of this race. First of all, Dan Suzuki gets the inside down into turn number 4, and Heike just goes to the outside and pushes wide. And Jardier into turn 7 and says, you know what? I'm going to go down the inside, as Heike then decides to completely mess up his braking play. But meanwhile, out front, it is going to be the words driver. It's going to be the number 911 of Matt Campbell, who wins the first of our All-Star races of the season. Matt Campbell wins, Dan Suzuki 2nd, Jardier in 3rd, as we're just going to let our timing and scoring screen update itself for a moment. But Matt Campbell, I mean, wow, he dominated that race. But of course, he's got to start from the back of the field for the next race. But he dominated the first race.
Yeah, didn't put a wheel wrong at all. In practice, he did a mid-35. He kept it to pretty consistent 36s in this race. So he's definitely looked for the race pace overall, not to make mistakes. He wasn't under pressure. Not the last lap you'd want, though, for Heike 360, because that was going backwards at the worst possible time. And although this race was only 10 laps, you gotta wonder, 47 degrees is not the hottest temperature we've seen around this circuit in sessions, but tires definitely could have been a factor. He's looked a little loose toward the end, Will.
Results up on your screen, and look at that, 7.1 seconds between Matt Campbell and Dan Suzuki. That in itself, even if that's going to be in the Super Cup we see later on, that would be impressive. 7.1 seconds then between Matt Campbell and Dan Suzuki, P1, P2. Jardier in 3rd place, about 7 tenths of a second behind Dan Suzuki, able to get that 3rd place on the last lap of the race. Heike 360, Zabier finishing down into P number 4 at the end of this race after that incident down at turn 4 on the last lap of the race. Emery coming home in P number 5, with Deplio in P number 6, Jimmy Broadbent in P number 7, Quick Gabby in P8, Cyanide in P9, and Maxime MXM after 2 incidents coming home in P number 10. Game of Muscle coming home in P number 11, Rye in P number 12, and Boosted Media Will coming home in 13th place. Of course, he will start on pole position for race number 2. So we're going to look at this incident again. We're going to see an incident again here. This is a Vodafone Replay between the 10 and the number 23 car here, Matt. This is coming down into turn number 6 and 7. Was there a bit of a push there?
We'll have to see this angle, because this is a bit too different. It was even hard to tell. I think there was. I think he just clipped the rear left, or excuse me, sorry, from our perspective, the rear left, the rear right of Heike on the way in, and that just unsettled him enough that he ended up on the grass. So perhaps there was contact there. It's one of those, it's a fine line, and unfortunately, you've got to lay blame a little bit further back in that incident. It was the man behind that's responsible, but yeah, not the worst. I'm sure we've seen worse racing incidents, and sometimes it's best to let those things go.
Vodafone on board right now. Let's have another look. So there wasn't actually, and this is one of the interesting things down at turn 7
you know
and
what?
turn 8.
I take it back. I don't think there was. I think he lost the rear in his own. The other camera angle, it switched just when I thought there might have been contact, and we kind of rejoined it as he was sideways. Onboard suggests otherwise. I take it back. That was totally Heike losing it on his own.
But that portion of the racetrack, after you exit Ferradura and you slow your car down, if you've not got the right braking position, and of course don't forget the marbles at that point of the racetrack as well, it can be very difficult to stop on the inside line down there.
And of Porsches, they're lovely to drive, but tricky to drive because of the rear weight. And there's ways to use that, obviously, to the advantage. But what it does mean is the rear tires do get punished. And we mentioned that the pro guys aren't good just because they're fast. They're good because they can manage that the whole way through. So I have a feeling Heike might have heated his up a little bit too much in the battle throughout the race, because he looked a bit loose toward the end, more and more, especially going into turn 4. Here we are. He had this oversteer, trying to catch the car, and he's just put too much stress and too much heat through those rears.
Yeah, completely agree. And then you come down into turn 6, Ferradura, which I always say is the toughest corner of this racetrack at Interlagos. Yes, you got Curva de Sol. Yes, you got completely lost the rear end. That car was not even going straight to the point that you started braking.
Yeah, and it becomes such a balance. I mean, I always call racing ballet with a monster. You've got this big, heavy scrap of metal with a huge engine and a ton of power, and you're balancing it with your feet like a dancer, and you have to be so delicate. And the Porsche Cup especially, trail braking, even with the good tires at the start of the race, is still a very, very tough thing to do. So yeah, it's very easy to lose the rear, especially when you're under pressure. You're trying to carry as much speed up the hill as you possibly can, and then you've got to get quickly on the binders and snap it to the right. And unfortunately, I went a little bit too right too quickly for him.
So don't forget, we got ourselves a 20-minute race coming up next. That'll be a fully inverted grid. So it's going to be a fun race here in the All-Stars race, which is the prelude to the 2021 Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing. And we've got 40 of the world's best sim racers ready to do battle in there. Matt, you're here for the entire season, not only on the All-Stars event, but also in terms of the actual main event as well, the Super Cup, and I'm sure you're looking forward to it.
Oh, absolutely. I said it at the start of the show. I'll say it again. I think it's the most competitive sim series on the planet right now. These guys take it so seriously. The drivers that I've been chatting with and communicating with, they've been practicing for weeks, just getting to terms. One of the cool things as well is, in real life, year to year, you get tire changes, and that changes the dynamic of a car. You don't always get updates to a Porsche Cup car. It usually goes with the model that they're currently in, the generation of car that's on the road. But iRacing still has a bit of an update, and therefore it is kind of like having a tire change. So there's going to be interesting to see who's adapted the quickest, and obviously 14 rookies. Yeah, big challenge with 40 cars on the grid as well, Will.
The track is hot, 106 degrees Fahrenheit, and I wonder what the conditions are going to be when we get ourselves over to the Super Cup later on. 106 degrees Fahrenheit is warm and toasty. Can you tell
me that in regular units?
In regular units, it's 38.7 degrees Celsius.
Wow, well done. Okay.
There we are.
You definitely have you do have a program. I can see it too. What
we do have a program, yeah. So here's looking at your grid then for your 20-minute feature race. It's going to be Boosted Media, Will at the front of your field, Matteo in second place, and then you got Gamer Muscle in third place with Maxime MXM in fourth, Cyanide in P number 5, and Quick Gabby in P number 6. Joey B is going to be in P number 7 with Pierre Oliver Deploy in P number 8. And then Emery in P number 9, Hoagie 360 10, Jardier Dan Suzuki in P number 11 and 12. And yeah, I have got this. It's actually 46.7.
Yeah, I think the coolest that I heard, again, from the drivers I spoke to that they were able to get in a practice session was mid-30s. So that's still very hot. I mean, 47 degrees. Oh, look at that start. This is going to be a mess going into turn 1. They're already 3 wide. Will, this is going to be tight. I don't know we're going to see them all alive on the other side.
You know what? I think, I was going to say they're going to be okay, but they're not. We've got one driver turned around at the rear of your field, and I think that's going to be Matt Campbell just turned around there as well in the exit of Curva de Sol.
It's not done there either. We're going to have a spin up front as well, and everyone's going the wrong way. It's actually Cyanide that had a great starting position that lost it. You're right, it was Matt Campbell. I think he was actually on the inside. We saw the big spin from the number 64 car, contact behind. I think Matt took avoiding action, clipped the curb, and lost it on his own as a result. Obviously, not his incident, but didn't have contact as far as I can see.
We still got battling going on. This is a great battle going on between the 00 car right now on Jimmy Broadbent. Oh my word! And Boosted Media. And well, they came together together, and that was an incident.
That car is looking a little Jimmy Broad bent, if you ask me.
Yeah, no Puncherino, simply. Because Jimmy Broadbent has fallen all the way down to be number 10 in this race, and I'm sure his fans will not be happy with that. Just a great start, actually, let's be honest with Jimmy Broadbent. He was up into P number 3 at one point, but then they had that incident going side by side into turn 7.
Oh, Gabby, that is a send.
Another car off.
Yeah, we knew. Oh, yep, absolutely. Gabby just absolutely sent it up the inside, but Maxime loses as a result. Maybe. Oh! Did Jimmy just die? We need to see the result of that. I think rejoining, she might have just clipped Jimmy, and he might be in the stratosphere at this point.
Yeah, it was very close. Actually, I do see
okay, he's there.
Yeah, he's okay. He's okay. So I see Jardier's car. You know, there's so many cars that's got this kind of mint green on their livery. And normally, of course, we expect to see red, white, and black. But for some reason, all these drivers like to see mint blue and mint green on their cars. And of the 12 cars we have, we've got 3 of them that are running black and mint something on their car, be it mint blue or mint green. That makes it really difficult for us to understand the difference between Emily Jones, for example, number 10 car, Jardier, and of course, Jimmy Broadbent in the 00 car. And I'm going to be honest at this point here, Matt, we need to get these drivers to get a little bit more colourful and creative with their colour schemes.
At this point, let's focus on the driving, one thing at a time, okay? Maybe we can get someone to do that for them. This is Jimmy, and this is the first contact, not the rejoin that we saw a little bit later on. This was actually a decent move. Gets up the inside, good clean braking, and then nowhere to go. Boosted spins in front. Actually, interesting that Will didn't really lose the rear. I think he just panicked and slammed on the brakes rather than try and drive out of it, and it kind of just parked the bus on Jimmy.
And then you'd assume that the second there would have been because of the fact that his car would have had some form of suspension damage. That would have been the reason why he again went off down to the end of that lap. Look side by side right now. This is battle going on. Is this for the race lead? Indeed, it is for the race lead. Emily Jones looking down to the inside of Rye as they go down in towards turn number 1. Emily Jones takes the race lead there in the number 51 car. And actually, you know what it's going to run? Gabby also looking to put some pressure on right now.
I love that Gabby's going to be all over Emery all season. This could be a nice little rivalry, but she was in a good position, Emery. She was one of your favorites coming into this. Obviously had the contact taker and put her back in the first race. I mean, she's the furthest forward of the fast runners in the second race. And Matt Campbell's still trying to make 2, but that first contact, look at this. They're almost 4 wide. There's not space for everyone. Gabby gets punted once and then returns favor. I think that's karma for Dan Suzuki as he got into her under braking. A bit of a, I don't want to call it a battle, but a bruiser.
Will Ford coming out of pit road, and Will Ford came out of pit road. He did, to be honest and fair to him, he did slow down and let all these cars go past. But because of that, you end up having 4 cars come down to 3 to 2. It's a bit like roadworks and motorway. And because of that, unfortunately, Gabby was the unfortunate victim there, getting punted down in towards turn number 4. So Gabby is now fallen all the way down into 7th place on track. If we're looking here at the battle going on towards the front of your field, but we're going to have a replay here. This is going to be what happens on the exit of turn 3, going to Sol. Notice Will Ford coming out of pit road there in that Cruising Media car, and then down into turn 4, and the number 7 car just get clipped from the side, and Gabby then just turned around into turn 4.
Yeah, and I said originally that I thought it was Dan Suzuki involved in the contact on both sides of it. I'm not quite sure that Yardia didn't have something to say with it. I just want to go back to liveries as well, because you touched on creativity. The yellow and green that we're seeing on Rari's car, that used to me, when I first saw that car in real life, it's based on the Man-Thai Porsche that obviously races in the now Nürburgring Endurance Series, but formerly the VLN. I never liked that color scheme. But the more and more I see that car in real life, it stands out and has a personality. So it's cool to see a little homage to that in the game as well.
As we're going to see, right, we're looking at the Vodafone onboard of him there live. And the number 9 car, that's a big tanker oversteer down in turn 4.
Yeah, I think had a helping hand. I think that was more than just oversteer. I think that was a bit over-delivered from behind, and it looked like it was Dan Suzuki that was the culprit yet again, so have to keep an eye on him. maybe for driving standards, but yeah, so, and we're just getting confirmation it was indeed contact, so definitely something that we'll have to keep an eye on for driving standards. He's certainly been in the wars so far this race as we continue to look on board with Ryan. I'm imagining there might be some damage from that, perhaps, I would say cosmetic, but also aero at this point in time. Here we'll look back at it and get a better look for you. Well, I think, yeah, this is totally showing the nose, but a little bit late on the brakes. Actually, to be fair, he's pretty far alongside there. The onboard didn't really reveal that, but that's a pretty fair game.
Good hold. Also, I think by contractually, season, but that's a love tap.
I'm enjoying that contractual reasons so far.
Yeah. I can agree with that one. So that was a true love tap low down into turn 4. We're looking right now, battle going on between the Geodesic racing car and it was like the number 64 machine. So this is battle going on for P4, P5 and P6 on track right now. Actually, no, it's not P6. So Boost Media, of course, is down by a lap right now. But we've got ourselves Deplo in P number 4, Dan Suzuki in P number 5, and Rai in P number 6. And you notice the fact there that Dan Suzuki, it looks like he might have got a slowdown penalty because he's just fallen down 3 places.
It's not unlikely. More so, I would say, not necessarily the driving standards that I was referring to with contact, but just because of the battles, he's probably going off somewhere the track doesn't like it. As you say, iRacing has their own system in place for that, which I love, by the way, and this is something that always irks me, is the inconsistency of driving standards and track limits and series around the world. Can't really mess that up in a sim. It's set in stone. There's an algorithm and a digital reference, so good luck breaking the rules there. But just a note as well, Matt Campbell, dominant in the first race. Saw the contact with him in the first corner of this race. Didn't get off to the start. He did have to pit, box, and do the repair for damage, so he's quite far down, but I'm curious to see what his lap times are, because Emery's got purple right now with a 36.5. That's still 4/10 slower than Matt. He was in the first race. Rari gone. He's just driven off on his own.
Yep, down at Unisal, trying to do a little bit of a Kimi Räikkönen there, going off track, figuring out where the outside of the racetrack is. Maybe trying to get himself home a little bit earlier, but there's a look at Emery down in towards turn number 1. Number 2 is Jardier, 2.5 seconds back. And then you've got yourself the number 23 car, Heikki 360, running into 3rd place right now. Hopefully we'll get a replay, what we just saw with Rai in just a couple of moments as he had that moment down on the exit of Yunsao. The car just seemed to rotate on him there, Matt. Don't see any contact. It's just more of a case of getting himself a little bit of oversteer again. Hot track temperature, 45.6 degrees Celsius right now, 59% humidity. And after even 10 minutes of racing in these Porsche 991 Cup cars, these tyres can get hot.
Yeah, oh, very hot, no question. Especially when you're seeing sliding in battles like this. It's so easy to overheat these tires. And they take a bit to cool down. You've really got to underdrive to let the tire come back into its optimal working range. And the biggest effect you're going to see on that is entry. You're going to get a lot of oversteer, the car's going to slide, and you're going to see a lot of issues under braking when that starts to happen. And it's a very difficult thing to do, is to sort of short shift, be smoother on the braking, and still carry that speed. Again, something you're going to see a little bit later on when we get to the PESC drivers and how good they are at it, how they use the gears as well as part of the handling and the diff as part of the handling to give those tires a bit more breathing room.
Let's talk about Emily Jones for a moment, because she was kind of non-script in the first of our races here today. I think she finished in P number 4, but here in race number 2, she is leading now by 2.7 seconds over Heikki 360. She made some moves early on, but she has been absolutely dominant since then, as actually battle going on P number 2 right now, and that's going to be Heikki 360, I believe, getting himself ahead of a Jardier through the center S, through the Codesol right now. The number 23 car is now ahead of the number 10, but Emily Jones, race number 1, I thought she was a little bit off, but race number 2, she's come back to where she was back in October.
Yeah, and you said it before we even started that she was one to watch. The biggest thing for me is consistency, though, and Heikki 360's been in the wars and is still actually catching and in second place despite all of that. So you can see the difference as turn 6, Emery's entering, and there's the gap, because there's where we are right now on the big screen above. Still a bit of a battle, but I think Heikki's pretty much got this over Jardier. He was a little bit quicker in the first race. Now that he's well and clean, if he just has I'd say 1 and a bit laps, he'll have a gap, and it really becomes a battle. 9 minutes left. I think he can still catch Emery at this point. The fastest lap between them is 1/10 apart, but again, watch the consistency.
Yeah, Indeed so. So Boosted Media is 1 lap down after the incident we saw early on. Everyone else is still on the lead lap. Matt Campbell, by the way, 1 minute 10 behind after that incident on race number 1. So Matt Campbell, who won the first round races here today, all the way down in number 12. And these guys are eligible for the championship. But for Matt Campbell, after the highs of highs at the start of the series, well, falling down, and a bit of a reality check for him down in P number 12 right now.
Yeah, the harsh reality of the reverse grid. And I would have loved to have seen a replay of his incident specifically, because I think he actually did try and avoid it, but just ran out of options in doing so. It was just here that it happened, exit of turn 2, entry to 3, and hard to tell sometimes from the camera angles. It's quite tight. The grass there, you're still turning. You get on that, you're going to be into the wall pretty quick. So he didn't have a lot of options. And I'm surprised. The RDS staying very close to Heike. Heike needs to keep his eyes forward. It's so easy, even though you're the faster car, to following is always easier. You can get behind them, you can see their lines, you can know where you're faster, you can know when to attack. But when you get clear, to keep that same pace and keep your focus forward, it's very easy to get distracted.
We're looking on board at Dan Suzuki in the number 48 car. And I wanted to get my yellow pen out, but I just realized it wouldn't go into the broadcast right now. But Dan Suzuki has got damage on the front left-hand side of his car right now. That is not a major factor at Interlagos. You can normally get away with that type of damage because of the fact the straightaways aren't that long compared to other tracks, and of course the humidity will mean that the engine power is less than what you get elsewhere. But it's still going to hurt Dan Suzuki in his battle with Gabby. Gabby's running in P number 5 right now, and she's had herself a pretty good race. She's 12 seconds, however, behind the race leader of Emily Jones. But this battle between Dan Suzuki and Gabby, this will go on towards the end of the race, and I'm really interested to see whether or not Dan Suzuki has any power in that car to drive behind Gabby.
Well, the flat 6 has a ton of power. We'll just see if he knows how to use it. Draft is definitely a factor, especially with a straightaway this long. Not so much as what you'd see in perhaps an open wheel car, more of a downforce car, but yeah, we'll see if we can get a tow. And it's more about getting the tow, but also you have to understand that turbulent air, get the braking right for turn 1, nail the Senna S complex, and now you get a second draft as you head down toward turn 4. I don't know if he's quite close enough this time, but inch by inch, you've got 6 minutes left. You don't have to force this move too soon.
Also, don't forget, by the way, if you are just watching us live online, the next part of our event will be the inaugural round of the 2021 Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing, the first World Championship event of 2021. Countdown screen will be following up next, brought to you by Heuer. And hey, Matt, you have the privilege of basically being a part of the first World Championship broadcast of the new year.
Yeah, phenomenal. It is a privilege to be here. Like I said, I love Porsches. I love the Porsche Cup series. In Canada especially, it is by far the best series that we have and we offer. And I think taking it virtually, it's the perfect car to do it. One make series, level playing field. There's no excuses. It's all driver. And that's what the series has become known for and respected for around the world. I mean, you talk to any GT driver in the world, any prototype driver, and they'll tell you the best place to cut your teeth is in a Porsche Cup car. And in Sim, I think right now it is the place to prove yourself. And we're going to see 40 of the best drivers in the world coming up very, very soon and try and prove that. And there's 2 defending champions that are coming back this year that are certainly eager, and about, I would say, 10 drivers that were nipping at them the last 2 seasons that want to beat them. So going to be exciting.
Gamer Muscle and Jimmy Broadbent on my timing screen look to be very close. It's about P number 8 on track right now. The number 11 car of Gamer Muscle and the number 00 of Jimmy Broadbent. So I'm hoping we can have a look at them in a moment's time, because they're separated by just 0.2 of a second on track right now. And in fact, Jimmy Broadbent has got himself just past Gamer Muscle there. So Jimmy Broadbent is now up into P number 8. Gamer Muscle is down into P number 9. We'll get yourselves a Vodafone replay for that one in a moment. But Jimmy B, after that incident early on in this race, is recovering for the field.
He is, absolutely. It's just been his story for the day, I think. Obviously in race 1 as well, he had a bit of drama in corner 1, so not the day he would have hoped for. I'm sure he's still having as much entertainment as ever and making all those loud and kooky noises in his shed that we've known and loved him for. So if nothing else, he's having a good time, and that's the main thing. But you're right, he is battling back, and he's not only just got bike gamer muscle, he's got Rari right in front and might be able to track him down. Again, there's 4 minutes left. It's a longer second race when we get to this point, so a bit more time to make these moves count. Yeah, that car's looking pretty banged up and bruised up. Fortunately, the best thing about Sim is he won't have to flip the front bill for that afterwards.
Yeah, true. He's got about 3 laps to go based upon the lap times and our predictions. I'm going to quote John Hindorf here on the computer, because we are looking, of course, at our timing and scoring screen as much as anything else. Thank you to the guys over at Timing71, racebot.wtf/Porsche if you want to see live timing and scoring for this, and also the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup on board with Jimmy Warmup. The final corner, the box corner, as they like to call it, down towards the center S. That was just a simple textbook down the inside pass, job done. Jimmy Broadbent up the position, and the thing about the center S as well here, Matt, is that you can basically brake so later than you think you can ever brake into that corner, because it's downhill and the humidity also helps you in terms of braking.
Yeah, absolutely it does, and the compression at the bottom lets you really dive into it. So super fun corner, I think. And there's also there's one fast line, there's one true racing line in these cars, but there's a high entry and a low entry. So even if you're overtaking, you can still carry speed down the hill because gravity allows you to get that acceleration back. So it's a great racing corner. You can really battle in there.
As we're looking still at the battle between Heuer 360 and Jardier, are going on for second place on track. This has been a good battle. Actually, I'm going to say it's going to be an understated battle in this race so far. The gap between Emery Jones and Heuer 360 is currently 4 seconds on track. So realistically, this is the battle now for the silver medal position on track. As Heuer 360 and Jardier are still scrapping it out as they work themselves on the exit of Yunsao down towards the start-finish line once again. They've got 2 laps to go in this race.
2 to go, and I will stick my hand up and say that I did not expect Jardier to be able to stick with Heuer once he got by, and the lap times have fallen a little bit for Heuer. He was running 36s behind, and this again goes to the point, once you get in front, you need to keep your focus. He's now running mid-37s. Now, tires certainly a factor in that, but definitely would have expected him to get away from this. Emery is just cruising up front now.
She is, and 4 seconds plus now. She is ahead. We've also got a battle going on for number 4 on track. Number 64 car of Duckbill, and also Gabby right there in the mix. And of course, Gabby had herself an incident a little bit early on in this race, trying to recover, but right behind the number 64 car. Say right behind, actually. It's about half a second back right now, as we see Jardier really trying to send it down on the inside. Was that done at turn number 6 on track? But out front, P number 2, P number 3, I think Jardier has realised his time is running out and he's got to start pushing and really trying to find a way to get past the number 23 car of Heuer 360 as they now work themselves down towards Yunsao once again. They're going to have 1 more lap to go, and Jardier is starting to get really racing.
Yeah, Gabby doing the same for 4th in the lower screen, and Ripley is going to have to be so careful at this point not to overdo it under braking, as we've seen so many people make that mistake. This is a good run. Down the front straight, stays high going to the box corner, but actually manages to keep his line, keep the nose in. It's going to be difficult, but you can absolutely get down the outside of turn 1 again. You stay high, keep the entry, pinch the driver on the inside, and you've got the apex for 2. We'll see if he can pull it off. We know as well in the first race that Heuer had trouble under braking late. This time he's got the apex. Does he have a run? Does he have a nose? No, he's got to leave room, and this will absolutely go all the way down the straight to turn 4.
Side by side then on the exit of Curve de Sol, down the back straight away. They're going to be side by side all the way down in towards turn number 4. Who's going to be the last late breakers? You can overtake on the outside here, but actually it's going to be Heuer taking the inside line. Will Jardier have the opportunity to do the cutback? He's going to try and go down to the inside, or put the outside into Ferratura, but Matt, right now, I think Jardier's got it.
He might. I think he's going to try and pinch it. He's got the line. He's not far enough in, so he has to respect that. Heuer has to get out of it, but this isn't done. Final lap and a battle for second place. Hard on the brakes. A little bit of smoke. That's a lock. Now he gets away with it, but that will mean that tire is going to be steaming hot. He's got to lean on it for the left-hand corner, and that might give a bit more of a run, but it's such a difficult place. He's really got to send it if he's going to there, Heuer. Difficult braking point. You'd have to be full committed. and you have to fully expect Yardier to respect that position, but he doesn't. He takes his line, rightfully so, and it's going to be a run to the line.
Emily Jones is about to take victory here in the Porsche All-Stars race as she exits turn number 15, the box corner, the toilet corner as it's officially known as. She'll come past the start-finish line. She will claim victory by 6 seconds over P number 2. Who P number 2 is going to be? We're going to look at that one right now. Jardier is on the inside. We got ourselves Heike. It's going to be side by side on the line, but Jardier will get it, and it's going to be Heike 360 in third. Fourth place, Gabby up to fourth, and it is going to be Gabby getting P number 4 there. So she got herself P4 at the end of this race here, Matt.
Yeah, great recovery from her as well, but what a battle for P2. That was a treat. I got to give full credit to both drivers. They respected each other's racing room. That was what you'd like to see on a track anywhere. I mean, both of them fully committed, fully on the edge, and fantastic result for each of them. But Emery, the one that you pointed out at the start, gets the win in the second race. Matt Campbell, not so much. Bit of a disaster off the start for him, Will.
Yeah, let's run through your final race results then here from the feature of the Porsche All-Stars race, and it is Emily Jones, Emery, who claims victory by 6.2 seconds then over Jardier in the number 10 car. Heike 360 Zabia coming home in P number 3, 6.4 seconds behind Emily Jones, and then Gabby coming home in P number 4. Pierre Oliver coming home in P number 5 with Dan Suzuki in P6. P7 will be Rai, 25 seconds though behind Emery. And that's going to be one of these interesting stories to talk about throughout the course of the season. Rest of the results coming up on your screen right now. Well, that's the first of our 10 races in the books there, Matt. And that was, I'm not going to lie to you, rather fun.
That was great fun, and we threw the cat amongst the pigeons, which we're going to do each week with the pro driver involved. Matt Campbell this time picked up a win in race 1. Not so fortunate in the reverse grid, which I think as predictably was pretty chaotic, but that makes it super enjoyable. And what a way to start off the broadcast and start off the season, as you say, as we get ready now for the pro drivers to take to the track. I think it's nicely rubbered in from all of that. Certainly rubber perhaps in some of the wrong spots after watching that.
Yeah. I can tell you that unofficially, Rich Leet will be joining us next week for round number 2 of the Porsche All-Stars series. So, as I said before, each of these races we're going to have at least one Porsche factory driver joining in the action. And I really do like this because on one hand we've got some of the world's biggest sim racing influencers. On the other hand, we've got some of Porsche's best talent all doing battle as our prelude to one of the biggest series in all of sim racing, the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing.
Yeah, super cool. And just to point out as well, some of those drivers is just as good on track as anyone. Aiken Guven, that's going to be in that series, is obviously a European Super Cup champion with Porsche Cup. So definitely some cross-talented and multi-talented drivers. Fun to watch. I'm looking very, very forward to this whole season, let alone the race about to come up.
I do have a story about Aiken Guven driving me back from a certain place in northwest Germany, I'm not allowed to say, to Dusseldorf Airport at 3 o'clock in the morning. And basically, it's the first time ever in my life when I was just saying, come on, you're a Porsche driver, drive faster.
Yeah.
Because we were on the Autobahn and he was doing 120. I think he was more scared about the fact that he didn't want to crash with me in the car more than anything else.
Yeah,
but
respecting others, and certainly not just respecting others, but also respecting the rules of the road with the license connected to your real license. Speaking of rules of the road, the ruler of the road, Emily Jones. Emery, that was an awesome second race, but you and Gabby have a little bit of a rivalry that's starting to brew.
Yeah, that was, wow, what a night. The second race was really happy to get the win. Like, I honestly had to shoot for a gap at turn 2 that was like 1 car width wide. I just like never lift. And I somehow made it through, and then I think I was home from there. But yeah, the first race was, it was a really good battle. I kind of was a bit rude on the first lap. I like went off the track and overtook her off the track. And then she came back and then killed me, but then I killed her. So I feel like
we did note that there was a bit of back and forth there. So it'll be curious to see how that developed. The pace is kind of similar between you two, or at least this week.
Yeah, we were actually like super close, trading out the same times. I feel like it's a really interesting kind of dynamic as well. I've never raced her before, but from what I can see, like she's very aggressive, like so aggressive under brakes. And I feel like as a driver, I'm not very aggressive. So it'll be an interesting kind of fight over the season. I think the two of us, maybe.
Yeah, well, hopefully it looks fun to watch. I think aggression is only half the battle out there with some of the drivers, as we saw today. But super good job in the first week. Congratulations on the win. Obviously, this moves us on a week's time. We've got a whole different circuit at Barcelona. Are you looking forward to that? Are you comfortable on that circuit as well?
Yeah, it should be a good track for racing. Probably just as fun as this track. I think you can run too wide there and kind of make a lot of cool moves. So, looking forward to it. Should be fun.
Awesome. Well, good luck there. We'll see you in a week's time. Congratulations. We're going to jump in actually with our second place driver, Yardier, who was super on edge in that final battle, back and forth throughout. I think the battle of the day was actually watching that last lap between both Yardier and Heike, and I wasn't even sure that Yardier was going to have that until the line. Did you think you had it, Yardier?
No, no. I was really careful in that second to last corner, and I was way too careful. I actually jumped over the curb too much, and I had a horrible exit. But luckily, I was just keeping the inside, and Heike, I think he maybe almost lost the car because he went to the right, and he did like a little wiggle, so just tiny perfect there, right there.
Yeah, it was lots of respect between the two of you. I thought that it was a phenomenal battle to watch. I was a little worried in the first race because you were picking on Cyanide quite a bit this week, as I saw. And he was keeping it with you at the start of it. I was thinking he might get by you, and that would be a talking point. But obviously, you held your own. You put in quite a bit of practice this week.
I definitely didn't. Honestly,
really?
I did around 1 hour, and I was ashamed of myself in a qualification, especially because I was complaining about my pace. And I definitely said that I definitely need to get more involved in iRacing because first of all, the racing was incredible. And second of all, I really want to be like proud of my pace. I mean, the racing was great, but my pace was not as good as I would like to have it.
Sure, yeah, well, look, it doesn't matter. You're on the podium, P2. You got Barcelona in a week. I'm looking forward to it. Best of luck there. I'm sure it's going to be just as fun and exciting.
That's super looking forward, guys. Thank you.
As Martin Haven would remind me, by the way, it's not Barcelona, it's Barcelonia, as I called it last year.
And
I've never been able to live that one down.
You could do the Barcelona if you really want to get technical. I try not to put pronunciations of another language on it because I'll butcher them, and I feel like that's very rude. So I just say it in my typical Canadian ignorant English. It
I
works.
could do it in Freddie Mercury style, but again, I'm not allowed to sing podcasts anymore.
Well, someone who I'm not sure if he's got a singing voice, but he's got a beautiful one to listen to as a streamer. Thankfully, it's a good voice because today was a bit of a mixed opinion day. Jimmy Broadbent obviously joined us and was up, down, everywhere, all over the results. Jimmy, that was something in the shed. Please tell us your view on that whole situation.
I didn't have a very good time in that one, Matt. I was in a good place in race 2, of course, started near the front, making up places, people spinning, and then Will spun in front of me, smashed the brakes on, and I had nowhere to go, and that was it.
Yeah, bit of a bystander in that. I actually thought just after that you got clipped. I think it was Gabby rejoining, and I thought you were dead done, but you actually made it by that one. It's still a bit of fun though, right? I mean, it's cool to just be in the battles, and obviously with this series going on, it's a bunch of very cool personalities that you're very familiar with in your industry. Kind of going at it. Is there anyone that you need to beat this year? Like, is there a rival on this track?
I wanted to beat Jardier. I've been called away. His real name's Jared. Don't let anyone say that though.
All right.
But he's a bit too quick for me, so I'm trying to punch above my weight. So if I do beat him, it will be a glorious occasion, but we'll see.
Well, we'll see. Barcelona may be a better circuit for you.
Oh no, it's not.
Well, we'll look down the schedule. We'll see if there's a place that we can find one. For you, though, overall, I mean, this Porsche's a tricky car to drive, but did you get a lot of time? I know you're a super busy guy driving literally everything, including shopping carts around the Nürburgring, but did you get a lot of time to practice? Is there more time for next week?
The practice was a bit of the official practice, basically. That was about it. So hopefully next time a bit more time to get a couple more temps. I wasn't too far away from the quick guys, but you know how it is. If it's 6-7 temps a lap, that
it adds up.
Tots up very quickly, yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen, it was fantastic to have you here, Jimmy. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week. Maybe I'll go add some ballast to Jared's car.
Please do, man.
All right. Well, thanks very much. Will.
Have a good one.
Pretty awesome first race, I think. We had a bit of everything, and that's kind of what we expect from the All-Star race. Apparently, I've lost Will. I thought he was
it's
still
supposed
with
to be
us.
fun, it's supposed to be entertaining, and that's exactly what we are supposed to do. And we've had a great race here today. Of course, this is a schedule. We go next to Barcelona in a week's time, then Imola, Silverstone, Road Atlanta, Montreal, Spa-Francorchamps, Nürburgring, Le Mans, and Monza. Matt, of these 10 races, which one are you most looking forward to?
From a racing perspective, certainly Interlagos, I think, is going to be fantastic. It kicks off the season. We'll see people really eager, which can lead to some mistakes or contact that, people get out of the way early on. So very much that. But I think in terms of overall on-track action, you have to look to something like Spa. Personally, though, obviously, there's one that stands out. That's being Montreal Canadian Circuit. The Porsche Supercup does race there in real life. It's always a treat. And in iRacing, the fraction to the wall, that's going to be tight.
And the 718 came on GT4 as well. That's going to be incredibly fun to watch there. So my name is Will Vincent. That guy over there is Matthew Trivett, also known as Sadakis. So we are about to head ourselves over to the next part of our coverage here today, and that is, of course, the 2021 Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup. Countdown to Green, brought to you by Tag Heuer, is coming up in a couple of moments' time. But in the meanwhile, what we've got to say is thank you to all of these All-Stars that's made today so much fun as we kick off the World Championship Series on iRacing once again here from Interlagos. This is one of my favourite tracks in the world. And of course, we've got more racing to come. We got ourselves a 15-minute race, followed by a 30-minute race to come in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing. We've got some of the world's best sim racers doing battle. Josh Rogers won the championship in 2019. It was 2020, the year of Sebastian Job. What's going to happen next? We're going to find out after these messages. You're watching the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing.
CJ, box this lap.
Not right now, boys. Come on, baby. Go for it. Go for it. Go.
Hey, CJ, you wanna come back in? CJ, are you there?
I'm staying out. Take it in, boys.
CJ, come on back in, buddy.
Risk.
What is he doing?
Go. I'm gonna stay in the car. Don't get up. Here I go.
Hey guys. How about some gas for the car, and I'm gonna get some coffee.
2019 was the year of Joshua Rogers as he made himself a household name in sim racing, winning the first ever Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup. In 2020, it was Sebastian Job, who was the first ever British driver to win a road racing World Championship Series on iRacing. 2021 is here, and well, we're in for an incredible season as we have another 10 races in the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup powered by iRacing, as we welcome you to Countdown as we get ourselves ready for 2021 and this incredible series. 40 of the world's best sim racers are about to get ready to do battle. As my name's Will Benson, I'm joined alongside Paul Smith and Corey Maddock. I'm going to come to you first, Paul. It's 2021. It's been a weird last, let's be honest, 12 months, but one thing has been consistent. We've had great racing on iRacing with these Porsche cars, and I'm so excited to get ready once again to have these drivers do battle.
It's going to be a great series. I'm really looking forward to all of this. Tremendous action is on offer. New drivers, returning drivers. It's going to be a fantastic season.
And Connery, you've got yourself a nice little suit on. You're ready to go racing. I mean, let's be honest, 2021, we've got so many storylines to talk about. That's what we're going to do over the next 15 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've actually got a specially prepared video for you recapping the 2020 season. Let's take a look.
Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing 2020 is on. Joe is going to claim victory. The race gets underway and a good strong start. Barcelona weekend for Max Benecki. Main race here at Donington.
Contact between the two of them.
Third win of the season, is second in a main race. Looks like a good launch of pole position for the first time in his career to Alejandro Sanchez. Sebastian Job. Alejandro Sanchez 47, and I guarantee there is a 22 car there. Is that going to work? He's on the curbs. No, and here up the inside goes Rogers. Josh Rogers wins. That was an epic battle.
We are underway for 30 minutes at Brands. Sanchez and Job, they make contact through Druid. Josh Rogers wins at Brands Hatch.
Can he keep it on the island? No.
Sanchez is off.
Can he hold it?
Oh no.
And they are both off. Pole, he won the sprint, he won the main race and start the long, breathless, power-sapping climb. 27 still in front, no, 22. Gets on the grass, drifts out wide, cones bite dust. Sebastian Job, it'll be win number 6.
And we are away here at Le Mans. Gets a little bit tighter. P2, P1 the championship, P1, P2 in the race. Joshua Rogers finishes with the race victory. That shows how tight the margins here.
Job is where he needs to be.
Not going to let it go.
Well, a big crash at the front at the second chicane. And that's going to be one of your championship contenders.
It's all over. Graham Carroll, he is going to claim victory. Sebastian Job, a British driver, wins a world championship. 2020. I want to make a joke about an Irishman, an Englishman, and a Scotsman both winning at races, but that's for another time. Let's have a look at the 2021 season, because of course we're here today at Interlagos, and our season takes us through Spain and Barcelona, Imola in Italy, Silverstone in the United Kingdom, Road Atlanta in America, Canada's Montreal, Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium, the Nürburgring in Germany, Circuit de la Sarthe, Le Mans in France, and Monza to round out our season on April 24. And Paul, there are 10 fantastic races in front of us, 10 very different racetracks. Which one are you most looking forward to?
Well, I mean, Road Atlanta gave us some tremendous racing last season. Imola as well as one of my favourites. But I have to say, Monza has always produced some tremendous racing in whatever you're driving, especially in these Porsche 911 GT3 Cup cars. So I'm looking forward to the final round already, even though we've yet to start the season.
We've not started the season yet, Connery, but of these 10 racetracks, it really is. The Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup is a journey around the world of racing tracks, and that's what I love about the series. The fact that we're not just based in one place. We're going all over the racing circuit around the world, the big racing circuits that Porsche do battle on, not only in the sim world, but also in real life.
It's an international competition in terms of the drivers and also an international competition in terms of the tracks going right around the world here as far as tracks are concerned. But we can have a little look at how the points are going to pan out for these next couple of sessions. You get points for qualifying. The top 5 in qualifying get back themselves points. Then you see the points for the sprint race as well. And then you have the main race, which is double points from the sprint race. So it's pretty simple, all things considered, Bob.
Indeed. So one thing that you might notice being different this year is that the grid will be inverted after race number 1 into race number 2. But double points then for the feature races, and the top 8 will be inverted from race number 1 into race number 2. So that's the only thing that you really need to know in terms of what happened in 2020, what's happening in 2021. The next thing we need to talk about, of course, is this beautiful racetrack. This is the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pace, better known, of course, as Interlagos. It's hosted so many great races around the world. Of course, so many great moments in racing history. And we're looking here, the elevation is 777 meters. The length of the track is just over 4 kilometers, 4.31, 15 turns, and it opened in 1940. Now, we have to be honest, it has changed dramatically over time to the racetrack that we see here today. But the thing is, Conor, this track is still one of the most arduous for all races because it's anti-clockwise, and of course, it's pretty high speed all the way around.
Yep, it is, especially that final run to the start-finish line. Lots of opportunity to get the drop out of Yunsao and then through those fast left-handers at the end of the lap to be able to set yourself up for an opportunity coming in towards turn 1. But what I want to focus on as well is that tight and twisty middle sector. A lot of side-by-side action coming through there. It's a track with a lot of overtaking opportunities and a lot of chances to be able to have a look, which is what I absolutely love to see in a racetrack.
Yeah, Paul, Ferradura in particular, turn 6 and turn 7, that's one of those portions of a racetrack that in an open wheel car is normally pretty basic, but in a car like a Porsche 911, actually you can go side by side there, but also more importantly, you can make a driver just drift slightly offline, and that causes them to really get into difficulties as they get into the infield section.
It's a tremendous corner. It's one that tempts a lot of people to maybe think about making a move. You've got to be brave and you've got to have the cooperation of your fellow drivers out there on track. So yeah, Ferradura, one of the challenging corners on the track. Another corner where you'll see plenty of action is Bico de Pato, the tight right hand hairpin, the duckbill, and there'll be some dives through into that corner in this race for sure.
Yeah, Duckbill Corner, as it's affectionately known as, is one of those corners that it's a lot more difficult than you think it is actually going to be when you slow the car down. And of course, momentum, Paul, is key out of there, because after that, you're accelerating through Yunsao, then of course onto the front straightaway. And if you don't get Bico de Pato right, it's basically going to hurt you for at least a lap.
Yeah, and that's it. You've got to carry that speed. It's really got to, you really got to be clever about things and really push hard where you think that you need to push hard, but be clever with around these championship as well.
Yeah. So let's have a look then at some of the rule changes that we got for 2021. This is probably the most important one, Connery, that the top 8 are no longer being inverted from qualifying. They're now being inverted after the sprint race. And this is one of those things I know that the fans have talked about quite a lot. But this is going to be important because no longer are we going to see the shenanigans, shall we say, during qualifying. Of course, Josh Rogers never cared about the shenanigans. He's won himself the Porsche Connect watch in 2020, and he probably wants to do exactly the same thing in 2021. But the most important thing is that you qualify and you start the sprint race where you are, and then after that, the top 8 drivers will be inverted, making for a very interesting feature race.
Yeah, this rule change is absolutely fantastic. We heard you all in the stream chat and on social media, and well, we've now got our reverse grid for the final race of the evening instead of the very first race of the evening. Like you said, it means that qualifying is also important, and you won't see drivers starting to, well, like we did last season, try to run to deltas to try and find themselves in that 7th or 8th spot to be able to get a front row start in the sprint race. Qualifying, you know, it's just like your box standard qualifying session now. It sets the grid for race number 1, and of course that reverse grid being race number 2 is beneficial, given that is the longer race for those drivers that get on the bad end of the reverse grid. It gives them more opportunity to be able to work their way through the field.
We've already talked about the fact that there are points, of course, in play for those who qualify in the top positions, but also not forgetful, there is again a Porsche Connect watch available to the driver who gets themselves the most pole positions over the course of this season. So that's the first prize that Josh Rogers won in 2020. Unfortunately, he didn't win the championship.
Yeah, but he's still got a watch and he's still got second place, didn't he? So, yeah, not a bad year in the office, that's for sure, but he's got his set sights purely on the championship. Qualifying, well, that's his deal. He dominates qualifying in this championship, and that'll be the starting point for this, but this track it can throw up some surprises here today, so don't count anybody else out of this one.
Yeah, indeed. So let's not also forget that in terms of the season winnings, $50,000 will go to the winner of the championship, $25,000 to second place, and $17,500 to third. So we're talking big money here for the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing. And it's that point of the year, Conrad, that I'm going to start asking you for your season predictions. Because, of course, Josh Rogers won in 2019, Sebastian Job won in 2020. Who's it going to be in 2021?
I think Sebastian Job, for the first time in the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup history, will be able to defend his title. So I'm going to go for Seb.
Well, Paul, you got 5 seconds. Who's it going to be for you?
It's too close to call.
There we are. So we're going to hand it off, and in a few moments' time, we're going to get ourselves ready for the first round of the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing. Join us next.
"40 of the best sim racers. $200,000 on the line. Who will rise to the challenge?" Interlagos, Barcelona, Imola, Silverstone, Road Atlanta, Montreal, Spa, Nürburgring, Le Mans, Monza. This is racing for immortality. This is esports personified. This is the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup.
Schedule, point structure.
Away we go from the start of this final feature race in the Porsche Esports Supercup. Brilliant launch.
40 of the best sim racers. $200,000 on the line. Who will rise to the challenge?
This is racing for immortality. This is esports personified. This is the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup.
It's a new year and it's a brand new season of the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing here for 2021. We've got new drivers, we've got returning drivers, and we have got 2 champions on the grid. Hello everybody, welcome along to the show. My name is Paul Smith. Alongside me, brand new to the commentary booth this season, Matt Trevitt. And Matt, I mean, what a season we've got to look forward to here. The 40 best sim racers on the 10 best tracks.
Yeah, and this series was already exceptional, and I've said it a number of times. This is the strongest depth of field, I think, in any sim category, in one of the hardest cars to drive, which means the talent really has to shine through. But we're in our 3rd season, so not only do we have veterans now, we have 2 returning champions, we've got 14 rookies, and with that development and that push of competition on each other, makes a huge difference, and everyone's just going to be so much better again this year.
Yeah, we've seen alliances with teams working together behind the scenes. You know, the knowledge base. They're having to try and grow that knowledge base where they can. But yeah, these drivers, they're all prepared, but they've not had long to prepare, have they, for this season?
Exactly that. The schedule was moved forward. It's actually a good thing. It doesn't conflict with a number of other series. This is the focus for all of these drivers. This is their main series, but some of them still have other obligations, and therefore it means they do have to kind of get their divided attention. Now they can focus solely on this, but it came very, very, very quickly for some of these guys. And there has been obviously an update within the game to the car, which is, I compared that to sort of a tire manufacturer changing a tire season to season. It's a slight change in driving. They had to get used to things again. And we start on, speaking of that tire model, probably the hottest circuit we will go to all year, Interlagos. And you can see how the beautiful ebbs and flows and the undulation works at this track on screen now.
Absolutely, yes. 2,500 feet above sea level, and the undulation, you mentioned it there, it is key to this track. 2 high-speed sectors, the 1st and 3rd sector, and then that middle sector, very technical. So it's really a compromise here of how you set up your car and how you drive around this track.
Yeah, and being a spec series, there's not a drastic number of setup changes you can do, but the ones there are very crucial, and it still takes hours upon hours of playing and having different group sets and setups for different temperatures that they'll know going into the session. Okay, it's this hot, we've got to use this setup today. And you wouldn't believe the amount of time these guys put in. It's not a team's championship, but you did mention it. They are in sort of alliances with each other. You've got different liveries on the cars. You'll see how that plays into it, but that also goes a long way for practice and setup. And I can tell you, the Red Bull guys, Sebastian Job, defending champion, Graham Carroll, who's kind of nurtured him for a long time and actually coached him in F1600 in real life because he was a Walter Hayes Trophy winner. They've been working endlessly every single day together just to dial in those final details.
Yeah, those two have been working together for multiple years now in the sim, and it's certainly been tremendous to see how they've been able to pull through and really make that work. But, of course, as you mentioned, not a team's championship, it is an individual's championship, and we're getting ourselves ready for the first qualifying session of the season. And as we alluded to in the pre-show, in the countdown show, change of the rules in that the inverted grid does not happen for the sprint race, it happens for the feature race. Therefore, you will see every driver out there giving it 100% here today.
Yeah, we're green in qualifying. You were a bit eager to go green, I think, as we just saw on your webcam. You've jumped the gun, but there is defending champion Sebastian Job on track. Beautiful car, and like I said, putting in a ton of time. Saw a hot lap from him. Watch the attention to detail in the driving. Not only are they very smooth with their inputs to keep these tires in play, but they use the diff as well as part of handling. Quick short shifts, especially in the turn 1, you'll see them drop to 2nd gear to catch the apex, but immediately back to 3rd. Gravity's on your side, you can get low in the rev and not get wheel spin. There's so many little things, and limits on the curbs, they're so accurate. 4 spots to watch, off-track infringements. The first and foremost being between turns, well, I suppose the first and foremost should be the exit of turn 3. That's less common, but the most crucial between 4 and 5 on the outside. That is one that a lot of drivers will get caught out on, even when they think they're within it. It's very, very finicky sometimes as to where the limit is. This being another, we can see on screen now, the last corner. You go too far onto that blue AstroTurf, you're going to get an infringement. And then, of course, up the hill out of turn 6 is the 4th spot to watch.
Absolutely, and me being a traditionalist, I love seeing the number 1 on a car to get the reigning champion. We didn't see it last year. Josh Rogers elected to keep his favoured 92
I think
number,
but well, 92 is the best number in racing. Everyone knows that. Not that I run it as myself or anything, but.
Well, speaking of the 92, here is the 2019 Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup champion, Joshua Rogers. Then he's out there on his outlap, getting himself prepared. And that's the thing here, in these sessions, you've got to prepare the tyres, you've got to get them in the right working range to give you those flying laps and those top speeds.
Yeah, absolutely. And we mentioned this as well, even with the All-Star race. There's a working range for these tires. Yes, they'll make it through the whole race, but they'll have to nurture them a bit at the end. At the start, your window is the first 3 laps. And it seems to be lap 2, especially in the higher temperatures, that these guys are really getting the most out of them. So I said this before, you want to get out, take it easy on your out lap, do a warm-up procedure the way you would, but not overdo it. Don't lock up, don't be foolish. None of these guys are so inexperienced as to do that, but then get your first lap done as a banker, and your second lap needs to be nailed. And if you get the first one right, you can take a little bit more risk on the second.
Well, for those of you who use the metric system, 53 degrees Celsius is the track temperature.
Oh my goodness.
That is a very toasty temperature. It is the first time we've been here in this series as well, so we're going to see how these drivers cope with those temperatures. It's Joshua Rogers on screen at the moment, coming into Ferradura then on his first flying lap. No time set yet, but we will be starting to see the times come up on the left-hand side of his screen there as they come in. And there you go, Sebastian Job straight away putting in the banker lap there of 134.6. They'll know that they can go a little bit quicker than this out there. Jeff Giassi right up there, a man with experience in the real world of racing around here in a Porsche, racing the Porsche 500-kilometre race. Got a car on pit road going very slowly. That's the 93, which is one of our newcomers to the series, Charlie Collins. So he's not going anywhere fast. So I think, looking here, it looks like he may be having a few technical problems, perhaps.
Yeah, hopefully that gets sorted quickly. It is leaving pit road, presumably the out lap, so hopefully gets that sorted. It can stay on track and not have to lose too much time. But Connery is actually going to be standing by this year, as well as our pit lane reporter, and giving us all the insight that we miss out on, and he's got the eyes on.
Yeah, thank you very much, man. There's been a lot of chatter amongst the drivers over the team radios saying that the track temperature is pretty high, the cars are very, very loose, and there's some chatter amongst some of them as well, namely Zach Campbell, that they think this is the second lap in this qualifying session is going to be the faster of the 2 flying laps that they will do each time they go out. So a lot of these drivers have not been pushing on their first flying lap here.
Yeah, and Paul, that's kind of what I was alluding to, and I know that this is hot for a race. 53 degrees is scorching, and that's going to put a lot of pressure on tire management. There's been a few sessions I've heard of reported in the 60s this week while the teams and drivers were practicing. So they'll, as we said, have different setups for this, but the second lap does seem to be key.
Well, speaking of Zach Campbell, here he is on his first flying lap then, up the hill out of Junsao. Around the final 2 corners, flat out here in this car. The number 15, a fantastic livery, I must say, on that car. He'll come across the line. In fact, no, that was his out lap. This is going to be the start of his flying lap here, so no time for him yet. Joshua Rogers at the top of his standings at the moment, with Dane Warren in second place, and Mitchell de Jong. Wow, what a 3 at the top of the standings right there. Tommy Erstgaard and Martin Krunke in 4th and 5th place as well. So all those drivers are in the same stable of team there. Up there at the top, they seem to have hit the mark.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Whether it's a setup for this specific temperature range or just the fact that they were pushing each other and working well together. Mitchell de Jong, for me, is one to watch this season. He finished 11th in the championship last year. but I shouldn't say all, the majority of his points came in the last 6 races. Before that, he was well outside, I think, even the top 20. So huge gain of points at the end. Does that mean we carry momentum? Again, we mentioned shortened off season this year. Sure, update to the car slightly and update to the game slightly, but he might be able to work with that. So seeing him in P3 right now is very exciting.
The Frenchman Thibaut Casabon out there coming through Juncel once again. Had to re-qualify for this championship this year. He did compete last season, and he is coming through to set a lap time for him. His previous lap, a 1:35.1. He'll be hoping to get a bit of an improvement there as he comes across the line now. 35.0 for Thibaut. So that puts him in 33rd down there. So that's what he is doing. Now, he is a partnership that we've been seeing. Lego have decided to partner with one of our drivers out there, and that's, I believe it's Tommy Øst. No, it's not Tommy Østgaard. It is the 16 car, and they've done a great partnership there. And, well, it's certainly a unique looking car, isn't it?
It is. I don't know how Lego would hold up in the real world, but man, it does look absolutely beautiful. I'm a Lego fan. I had a Lego Advent calendar this year. It's still more fun to me than chocolate, probably better for me. Great to see these partnerships coming into the game. And I love, we talked about liveries. I love the different personalities that you can get out of even just seeing different colorways. Sometimes what you get in sort of a non-spec series is people running their factory colors, but now that we're all in the same car, you get a little more creativity sometimes across the board.
So I want to run this qualifying as we are at the moment. It's Joshua Rogers first, Dane Warren second, Mitchell de Jong third, Tommy Østgaard fourth, Charlie Collins, newcomer to the series, in fifth place, Martin Krunke, Matt Backham, who we just saw in the Lego car, Jeremy Bootaloo, Ricardo Castroleda, David Williams, and Ayashan Guvan, another one of our newcomers. All 11 drivers out of the same stable. Coanda have found the winning ticket here for qualifying. It's a question of, can anybody else challenge them, really, because our reigning champion Sebastian Job is down in 12th place and he's completed all of his laps.
Yeah, Graham Carroll as well in 18th, and Graham was saying he wasn't feeling super comfortable coming in. Remember, he won the first race last year, the first sprint race that was, and Sebastian Job won the second. Didn't quite go to plan the following week at Barcelona. Of course, that was Zandvoort last year, not here at Interlagos, but they had a great start, and for Sebastian, that was a huge part of his championship run. You're not looking as comfortable, you're absolutely right. Rogers, on the other hand, last year, we had this rule set where he actually gets to keep the pole for the sprint race rather than going reverse. He had pole for 8 of the 10 rounds last season, so he'll be loving this rule set change. Remember, he was champion in 2019. Looking like he might have something to say about becoming the first back-to-back champion this year.
Well, Joshua Rogers has just put up an even quicker time up at the front of your field. We're still having a look at Matt Backham here. In fact, we've switched forward now to one of your other drivers coming across the line. That's the 27 then. And this is a driver who switched teams over the winter. Patrick Holzman moving over to the Red Line outfit. So working with Max Benneker and the rest of the team there. And, well, the German, he's been a leading figure of this championship for all of its history. Not exactly the season he wanted last season, having to take it to the final race to get an automatic qualifying place.
Well, and keep in mind, he was doing double duty last year. He was, you said, mentioned teams. He was part of the Red Bull driver program for the esports team and was therefore doing, as part of the Toro Rosso, now obviously AlphaTauri, but Toro Rosso's F1 esports team, he was doing F1 esports as well. And he decided, no, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to focus strictly on Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup. He wants to make a statement here. Switched over to Redline so he strictly could work with Max Benneker and really focus on it. So that's something really interesting, and we'll see if that's a benefit to him or not, as the German's definitely quick. He's aggressive. He's certainly got some friends and enemies on the track, but for good reason. He's always one to watch.
Yeah, he is certainly a very rapid driver. Really has the talent out there to be able to put in some good times. Of course, he has previously won races in this championship. 3 race wins in his history in this championship, most recently in the sprint race at the Nordschleife last year. So Patrick has that winning pedigree in this championship. He just needs to be able to get himself in a position where he can challenge for championships, and he'll be hoping that he can get that here this year as he comes across the line of 34.936. That's his best time, and he won't be happy to 32nd on the grid. But time is running out here, Matt. We're into the final minute, and Johan Hart, the 90 driver for the Apex Racing team from France, well, he won the iRacing Rallycross World Championship Series, most notably.
Yeah, very, very cool. And obviously, speaking of Rallycross, that's what Mitchell de Jong does in real life as well. So there's all kinds of mixing and matching of sort of where the backgrounds of these drivers are. I just want to point out, at these temperatures, to be breaking into the 33s, I wasn't sure we'd get there just because the pressure of qualifying, having to nail it so quickly. But that's an incredibly good lap from Joshua Rogers. Warren is 0.9, off that. So this is what we expect to see in this series. There's not 1 second between here and 32nd place on the grid. And that, as you say, was Patrick Holzman. I think he's just been actually moved down further.
Well, here we are then, and we're getting ready for the start of the sprint race here in the first round of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup. And well, it is an all-Australian front row of the grid, because it is Josh Rogers and Dane Warren front row, with Tommy Erstgaard, Martin Kronka third and fourth place, with Mitchell de Jong, Charlie Collins, one of your newcomers, in sixth place. Backham, Castrolado, Gouvan, Bouteloup with Williams in 11th, and Sebastian Job, your reigning champion, 12th. You'll see the rest of the grid on there. Graham Carroll down there on row number 9. He'll be disappointed with that. Alejandro Sanchez on row 7 as well. Rest of your field then, Max Benneker, row 11 for him. He'll be disappointed with that. As we work our way through the grid, plenty of newcomers and plenty of experience out there as well, all mixing together, so it shows that experience doesn't always give you a good qualifying position. But very briefly then, Matt, thoughts into this first race. What were we expected to see in the sprint race?
It's difficult. I mean, again, you're going to see that the pole sitter actually inherit pole this year, so it's going to be very, very difficult to try and see him maybe get dislodged on that. You're going to see some teamwork together for Joshua Rogers, but Tommy Usgaard could definitely be a factor. This is a look at all the countries we have this year. It's an incredibly well-rounded series. I said it as well. We don't have 3 races in the UK, and track-wise, we're all over the place globally, and it's the same for the drivers.
Yeah, you see big countries, little countries, and little islands like the Isle of Man involved in this, with Josh Thompson represented the Isle of Man, so he's out there on the circuit. But drivers getting ready for the start of this race. We're only about 10 seconds away from the green flag dropping here on the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing. The green flag is in the air, and away we go for the welcome sprint race here. Down into turn number 1. It's Josh Rogers who gets a great getaway at the front of your field. The rest of the pack working their way through. 2-3 wide further down in your field. Will everyone make it through turns number 1, 2 and 3? And it appears we have got through the start safely, which is the first pitch point of this race. Down towards the Interlagos for the first time here. You see all the battling going on further down. Alejandro Sanchez involved there. He's stuck behind one of your Apex cars, number 30 of Kevin Ellis Jr., who had one of these best seasons last year. Coming back to the front though, and Martin Krunka is already just dropping off a little bit of a gap between him and the top 3, and the rest of the field. There's a bit of contact gone on further back, and Jeremy Bouteloup is dropping down my timing screen, so he's had this big incident there, and that's involved 6 cars then involved in that one, Matt. That's a little bit crazy, but it's unfortunately one of the nature of this track, with these tight hairpins in the middle of the middle sector.
And it's the nature of being in such a strong concertina. You've got 40 cars out there. You could see, I mean, not only was qualifying close, these guys have to respect space, and they did so well, but eventually someone had to get caught out. Now, there is some beneficiaries in this. Graham Carroll's up to 14th already, 4 places for him. Sebastian's still locked out in 12th, but if Graham can get with him, that's some team support to help them work through the field. Beneka, by the way, I want to point out, 17th. he had a poor opening race last year in the season as well, so he definitely needs to work on his form today, try and make the most of this situation. But up front, man, oh man, lap 2 is no different than the start, as we're too wide for 6 rows into the first corner.
Yeah, that's Beneca and Castrolado battling away. Marina Sarica, one of your newcomers, one of your qualifiers for this championship, right in front of Max Beneca, the first driver ever to reach 11k I rating on the iRacing service. Into Descenda del Lago then, second lap of 10. And Castrolado now just having to wait patiently behind, but he's got to look out behind him as well, because Daniel Lafuente is looking to make some moves there. So the two drivers working their way through. Ferradura gets onto the brakes. This is an overtaking opportunity if you're brave, but when you're so closely matched in this championship, then really you've not got the opportunity here.
Well, we've got to look back as well. We saw the tail end of that accident. You spotted it in the background, but what actually went on? Again, Constantina, we saw coming out. This is through turn 6 up the hill. Very tricky to get the car balanced and straight onto the brakes. Where did the oh, it was VRS into VRS. Not what you want. In fact, that's Guven that just got pinballed around, and that goes all the way back to the back of the grid. In fact, nowhere to go. Some tripping and falling, and I'm sure some damage that's going to result in a bit of a lap time loss for a few people.
Yeah, Johan Hart, of course, one of those drivers who was caught up in that as well. Thank you for the Vodafone Replay there. But across the line, start of lap 3 then. And we're starting to see what sort of lap times they can do here. And Joshua Rogers is not that much quicker than those behind him, so he's dragging those drivers behind him. But you look at number 5, Martin Krunka, 4th place. He's got Mitchell de Jong, he's got Charlie Collins, Matt Backham, Kevin Ellis Jr. has worked his way up into 8th place, so really good driving from Kevin there. Alejandro Sanchez hanging on to his coattails as well in 9th.
Kevin Ellis Jr. is another one for me last year that was arguably one of the most improved drivers. He won a race in the opening season, in 2019, but last year, 3 second places took him to 5th in the championship, and that was a big improvement. That was a big step forward for him. So definitely, if he can continue to at least find that consistency, he'll be a factor in this championship as we see another spin further back. And I think this time it's actually going to be Fenalosa that's off on the outside.
Yeah, that's Ferradura there. So what has happened there? We'll get a look at that very shortly. But there's your race leader at the moment, Joshua Rogers, ahead of Dane Warren. It's Australia 1, Australia 2. Yes, Joshua Rogers does live in Germany now. He moved there for sim racing commitments. As here we go then, we'll have a look at the replay, see what's happened. David Williams apparently involved in this one. Well, this is going into turn number 1. Williams down the inside, locking up an inside wheel. Around he goes, he gets collected by one of the Curva cars on the fins, and well, once again, carnage behind.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's twice in just as many laps that we've seen VRS cars in the wars. Unfortunately, the first time I think it was Guven that was actually tapped by Jeremy Glutloot, so things looking a little awkward there, but hopefully they can recover again. Long championship. You think about last year, I said Beneca was slow to get into it. He still had a good season, and Sebastian Job might have come out the championship leader after the first weekend, but they had a tough weekend in Barcelona. It's a long series when the racing is this close, so you just got to stay consistent. And speaking of the Red Bull boys, Graham Carroll is in the wars. He's up to 13th, but look at the battle behind him. 4 cars for 1 position, and just in front is Sebastian Job. Graham's going to do his utmost to make sure Sebastian has space. If he can hold this position, this is massive for them.
Yeah, Graham just made it past Diogo Pinto then. There's Max Beneca and Morena Sarica going side by side. As I said, Sarica, newcomer to the championship. He won the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge last season, which was the warm-up races that we had last season before the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup. Here's a replay, and this is further back. So this is what this is what's happened to Carlos Fenalosa. That's the 42 making contact, and well, around goes. That's Matakai de Soya who made the contact there with Carlos Fenalosa into Ferradura. I said people were going to have a try there.
I think Fenalosa also checked up maybe a little bit. They were really tight, and it seems counterintuitive. If we all have the same breaking point, why can't we all use it? Well, if you're that close together, you've got to back up your markers according to the person in front. Sometimes, especially when you're 3-4 deep in that braking line, it's hard to read that. So, yeah, just an unfortunate situation as they trip. Run down to 1. Rogers is not getting away. Teammate Warren is strictly in his mirrors, and again, it's not a team championship, so no one's safe. He could absolutely go for this, and Rogers definitely has to keep his wits about him. How are we still wide this far back? Pinto's gone back at Carroll. Graham's had to run wide around the outside in those positions he brilliantly made up last lap. You might as well put a mirror image on it, swap the liveries, and we're back in that position, but this time Graham's down three spots.
Yeah, absolutely. He's had to take to the grass just to avoid any contact, so he was thinking the long game there, but now it's Pinto and Benneker side by side. That's allowing Sebastian Job to actually pull away. All of this battling going on is slowing each other down. They're tripping up over each other. Daniel Fuente is battling with Thomas Tetela. The Finn coming down the inside. There you see that black car right in front of us in the 107. So Thomas making moves forward ahead of Daniel Fuente. But you keep on mentioning about there being not a team championship. Dave Warren, he's hungry to win a championship, and don't be surprised if he makes a move.
It's important to note the team chemistry and that they work together, but at a point, yes, this is a driver's championship, and everyone wants to be a world champion. That's why we race. We like to win. That's what it's all about. And Graham's struggling to hold position. Look at the Constantina into 1, and they're all staying tight because if you can get the apex, get the run, and hold position. Now, who's going to get compromised here? Surely there will be an effect down the straight, and it's going to be very difficult for all of them to hold position. This is just getting further. With each battle up front in this line, it just struggles all the way back. I'm sure they'll be 3 wide again when we get to turn 4.
Yeah, as you can see, chopping and changing there in the back of shot as well. So that's one of the core drivers. And let's see, who's that? That'll be Sexhorse and Mikael Gard. They'll be swapping positions down in 20th and 21st place. Of course, in the sprint race, points only pay down to 20th place. Yep. So that top 20 is crucial for anybody to get their championship up and running here. But look at this. This is a crazy pack here out there. It's 11 cars.
And the trouble is, I was going to start to mention specifically with the Red Bull boys, we talked about setup and the second lap being the right lap in this high temperature. But when you get into the race, now we're on lap 6. Maybe some other setups have longevity. Maybe they're going to keep better tire life throughout this race, and cars would start to find form and find pace. But the problem with that is, let's say that's true in the case of Graham Carroll. Well, then he gets the mistake. He gets boxed out. The Scots are good at golf, but he gets put on the grass, not where he wants to be. And even if he has that pace, he's now stuck in this line. It's so frustrating sometimes to work through these packs. And you can't afford to be too aggressive because you're just going to get swamped by everyone behind you.
Yeah, he appears to be buried deep in the rough right now. He's having to get a wedge out just to try and work his way forward. But I'm looking at, we saw the battle for the lead on the split screen momentarily. There's still 6.5 tenths between the 3 of them, so that one's not, that's just simmering away at the moment. You could possibly say that Dane Warren and Tommy Ersgaard are maybe looking after their tyres and pushing Joshua Rogers at the front to maybe try and make him work his tyres a bit more. We have had 6 drivers on pit road: Josh Thompson, Johan Hart, Thibaut Casabon, David Williams, Ricardo Rico and Christopher Dambeats. They've all been onto pit road, so they have not had a good day here. But look at this. It's Connery, you've got some news for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Some news from Kevin Ellis Jr., the Scotsman, currently getting himself really involved inside the top 10. Currently, he feels like he has a better race pace car than he does qualifying. So he's still looking to try and improve positions. Right on screen for you now. He's about to get all over to the onto the back of Mac Backham towards Yun Sao, but at least from Kevin Ellis Jr. and a couple of the drivers that he works with, they have a better race pace car than qualifying.
Thank you very much, Connery. So that's a great point that you've kept on raising here, Matt. It's all about how you look after those tyres here today with those track temperatures so high. I mean, it's gone up to 54 degrees Celsius now, has the track temperature. As here we see, battle for the lead coming on now. This is starting to get a bit hot.
Yeah, a little bit defensive. I mentioned this in the previous All-Star race, turn 1 where it is downhill. As long as you can get the car stopped to the apex, you can get on the power and let it carry you down with momentum, because it's kind of 2 entries. Yes, obviously you want the main racing line for your fastest lap, but you can defend, and you see Josh Rogers being forced to do so. He takes a little bit of a later and straighter line through turn 4. That'll give him a bit more run up the hill potentially, but in the draft, obviously, Warren's going to have an effect to that. It's worth noting, just to point out, 14 rookies. Top 20, you're secured for next year's championship. Anyone outside of that either has to re-qualify or they don't make it back on the grid. That opens the spot for those who do. 14 new drivers this year. The leading driver right now of the rookies is Charlie Collins in 6th place. And a couple of people tipped him off to be one to watch for the overall, let alone the rookies.
Yeah, Connery did actually mention him as one of those drivers to keep an eye on. He did absolutely do a fantastic job in the qualifiers. Here you see that battle. Mitchell de Jong has made it past Martin Kronka for 4th place. So Mitchell up into 4th, Martin down to 5th. And Charlie Collins just sat there waiting patiently for 6th place. So you can see those three working hard and working almost together because not that far behind, about 1.1 seconds. There you saw him. Kevin Ellis Jr. has made his way past Matt Backham here into 7th place. So Kevin is on a charge and it's showing how his setup work has really worked. You see the leaders still together, no change there. And now Backham coming under pressure in the background of that shot from, well, there you see Alejandro Sanchez.
Sanchez, and this, keep in mind, is pole position for the feature race. 8th position, swapped grid, is definitely trying to go for this right now. But Gyasi, Sanchez, they could easily find themselves on the front row, or they could be stuck back in misery on row 5. It's that much of a margin. So this is where you can afford to be aggressive and should be aggressive at this 2 laps to go. I mean, this is huge. This makes such a difference running wide. Backham's out on the outside, that gives a run, but he will still have the inside up the hill. Bit of a track limits issue, but he stays put in it. Now waiting to capitalize. You've got 2 drivers. Absolutely. Now, if they get forced out. If Sanchez is wide here, Backham is able to get it slowed up and turned in. You might see a change for position regarding number 7 sneaking in as well, Paul.
Yeah, Sanchez looking to the inside. He'll have the outside for Mika Pato, but he's trying to make this work. And it almost seems as if Matt Backham has worked his tyres too hard in the early stages of this race. Zach Campbell going side by side with Jeff Gyasi now. They're trying to fight their way forward in this one. And it just seems to be that Matt Backham is the cork in the bottle here, slowing up people. We've got the battle for the lead ongoing because they're about to start the final lap here. This sprint race is just flown by here, Matt. But it's at the big 120 thrills and a couple of spills.
Yeah, it certainly was. I mean, that's always going to be the way. You've got a massive field of cars, and first race of the season, people are eager, maybe a little bit underprepared. In some cases, there was going to be some dramas, but man, the battles are exceptional throughout, and there's a number of Jiffin trains. We've been kind of focusing on the front 8 cars, but you can go all the way back to 20th place and find a battle. In fact, La Fuente's just gone by Gaeta way back, and they're back and forth on the timing screen, so tons to be seen. But yeah, so far Josh Rogers controlling, I think we'll say. Warren, you're never going to get a clean break in a series like this, so this is pretty comfortable so far. I think for him, he'll be familiar with this position. It means he starts 8th if he does pick up the win in the next race, but he's used to going through the field as we saw last year.
Yeah, absolutely. As they go into Ferradura for the final time in the sprint race then. 1, 2, 3, as close as that. As they slow it right down, get right over the curve there. Be careful not to pick up a corner cut penalty through that hairpin. Onto the power, the tyres will be praying for the end of this race, and the problem is they've got a longer race coming up in just over 10 minutes time, so that tyre management is really going to be key in the feature race. But into Zhensao for the final time then, and it is Josh Rogers who's at the head of the field. But Damon, he's not giving this one up. He's pushing all the way to the championship, to the top of the standings. Will he be able to do anything here? No, he won't. So it'll be Josh Rogers who takes the victory here in the sprint race of the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup across the line with Warren and Erskard, and Alejandro Sanchez crucially finishes in 8th place to get that reverse grid pole.
Yeah, got Backham at the end. That's going to be heartbreak for Matt Backham running that beautiful Lego car. He needs to get some pieces put back on it because he's going to have a tough job coming through from 9th in the feature race, but all the way down the grid, crossing the line. A couple of names to note near the back that maybe we're used to seeing further up. Jeremy Boutaloop ends up back in 25th place. Holzman, we talked about him changing stables this year, 27th for him. These guys actually finished behind a couple of guys who had some dramas. I think Fenellosa's back there at 31st. He was off track at one point. So certainly some improvement to be made. 20th place will get points as we look at the final results.
Yeah, so there you go. The two Australians, Joshua Rogers and Damore in first and second, with Tommy Erstgaard in third, the Norwegian there. The American Mitchell de Jong in fourth, ahead of the German Martin Krunke in fifth place. Charlie Collins ahead of Kevin Ellis Jr., get my teeth in there, in seventh place. And then, as was pointed out, the Spaniard Alejandro Sanchez in eighth place there. Matt Backham and Zach Campbell round out the top 10 here. And some notable names, your reigning champion Sebastian Job in 12th place, Max Benneker in 13th in the end, Graham Carroll 15th, Thomas Tetteler down in 19th, another one of those notable names down there. Rest of your field, Jamie Fluke, disappointed, just missing out the points in 22nd, and Jeremy Bootsloop getting involved in incidents early on, along with a few of the others that you're seeing further down your field here. But Matt, that was a tremendous opening race here, and we've got a longer race coming up very shortly.
Yeah, it's incredible how much battling there really is. It's so hard to keep track of, but that is amazing how close it is. Close at the front, but looking somewhat controlled. Josh Rogers, our winner. Did it seem as easy as it looked?
Well, we'll hopefully get to speak to Josh very shortly.
Apparently, he's a little faster on the track than he is in the interview. Okay.
Well, yeah, that's it. He'll be calming himself down, getting himself ready, because that was it was hard work from what we appear to have seen there in that one. But overall, though, generally speaking, a nice clean race. In fact, here he is. Take it away, Matt.
Yeah, Josh, I was just saying it looked easy from the outside. Was it as calm and collected in the car?
To be honest, no. Dane was putting on a really, really good challenge there, and the draft is so strong at this circuit that ultimately, even if you're within a few tenths or half a second coming out of the last corner, they can be in for a run to get the move done. So had to try a couple defensive moves towards the end. I think ultimately the main goal for most of us is the feature. So he wasn't too aggressive with it, but I think the tables will turn for this one, and we'll be starting behind. And I think things could be a little bit different.
Obviously, the change with qualifying, you actually got to keep your pole position this year, but it means you'll be no stranger starting from 8th. Do you feel comfortable in that position for the future?
Ultimately, it all depends on if we can get through the first lap. If we do, then I feel comfortable trying to pick off some places. I think, like I said, the draft is quite strong. So, as long as you're kind of within range, you can usually move on into turn 1. So, as long as we get through the start clean, I think that's going to be the main focus. And then from there, just try and pick off cars one by one if we can.
57 degrees in qualifying. We were kind of noting the differences in setups and the high temperatures of Interlagos. Obviously, you guys had incredibly good qualifying setup. In the race, you had track position. You could nurture it. Do you think your setup has the longevity to maybe battle if you need to get into the wars and get your elbows out? I
hope so. I think in testing, sometimes something that I at least struggled with a little bit was that long run speed in clear air. I definitely noticed that anyway in the sprint race. But thankfully in this race, we're in the dirty air. So hopefully that makes things a little bit better for us. But it's there's always different conditions, changing conditions. So, it could be a bit of a lottery in terms of what we get in this one from the car, but fingers crossed all as well. All I can really do is drive the car my best, and really the rest will be what it is.
Yeah, wow, great first race. Good luck. Hopefully it does stay clean, like you say, and you can get through the field. Paul, that's as good a start as you'd expect for someone who is a defending champion and wants to retain that crown this season.
Absolutely. So that was a tremendous sprint race, but we've got the feature race coming up right after this.
So you're aware, guys, there are some accusations.
CJ, box this lap.
Not right now, boys. Come on, baby. Go for it. Go for it. Go.
Hey, CJ, you wanna come back in? CJ, are you there?
I'm staying out. Take it later, boys.
CJ, come on back in, buddy.
Risto.
What is he doing?
Oh, go. I'm gonna stay in the car. Don't get up. Here I go.
Hey guys. How about some gas for the car, and I'm gonna get some coffee.
Well, after a tremendous first race of the season there in the sprint race, we've now got the feature race coming up very shortly here. Paul Smith and Matthew Trevett here on the commentary box. And, well, brilliant stuff. A couple of bit of incidents involved in that one, but generally speaking, really close fought racing.
Yeah, very close, and that's what this series has become famous for and known for, and rightfully so. It's a one-make series. It's all driver in that sense, and it's always beautiful to watch. I'm not going to over-sensationalize too much of the storylines. It's a long championship, 10 rounds, 2 per round, so 20 races. We're just getting into it, but definitely Josh Rogers with a good foot forward to start things off. We know he's a protagonist, so a good start, definitely something he's going to want. And Sebastian Job, Max Benecca a little bit further down on the field, some of the rivals, so maybe a little bit of pressure off, but as he said, he's got to survive the start of this race, and everything is possible still at the front of the field.
Well, somebody who's been keeping an eye on everything that's going on here, Conor Maddock, I mean, what were you hearing from the drivers in that first race?
Yeah, well, at least for a lot of the mid-pack drivers, some confidence, and sometimes quite loud confidence as well about their race pace. At the end of that event, we heard Moreno Sorica actually say that he was feeling particularly strong at the end of 15 minutes, although a lot of drivers are still very worried about that tire wear. We had Kevin Ellis Jr. complain over the radio that the tires felt like they had a puncture 15 minutes into the race, and well, this next race is going to be so much longer than that. So drivers towards the end of this feature event will be really struggling for grip out there, as if they aren't already.
Thank you very much, Connery, for that. And tyre wear is going to be a key feature of this feature race. Of course, a longer race here. Very briefly, Matt, I think people are going to get tired of us talking about tyres by the end of this race.
Well, everyone's tired of tires. They're a nuisance, and they're a nuisance, to tell you the truth. They can heartbreak very quickly if it goes wrong, and it's no different in the sim. You may not get punctures simulated or flat spots simulated, but temperatures are a huge factor in iRacing. It was interesting as well to hear Josh Rogers say that dirty air was actually better for them in some ways, and that has to do with the stiffness of the car and being able to put less force on the tire in certain situations. So definitely something to watch. We'll see if the battles are as fierce, because people might just want to settle in and then battle toward the end if they can keep the tire in it.
Absolutely. It's all about tactics and all about strategy. Try to force the mistake out of your drivers in front, and that is what we are going to see in this race. But we're getting ready for the start of the feature race. It's going to be a 20-lap race for this one, and we'll get to see that inverted grid. Alejandro Sanchez then got on the row one ahead of Kevin Ellis Jr., Charlie Collins, Martin Krunke, Mitchell de Jong and Tommy Erskard the first three rows, with Warren, Rogers, Backham and Campbell, with Giassi and Sebastian Job on row 6. Rest of your field going through as they finished, so only the top 8 get inverted in this feature race here. So plenty of drivers wanting to work their way forward in this feature race and try and get themselves a really good result out there. But Sanchez will be the one who will be feeling that he's got the most to gain out of this one. Finished 8th in the sprint race and is now starting this race from pole position. So we'll have a look and see Barney, the flagman, is ready on the gantry, ready for the green flag to be dropped in this feature race, the first feature race of the 2021 Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing. Good start at the front there by Sanchez, but he's going to be under pressure from Kevin Ellis Jr. down into the centre S for the first time. Sanchez does stay in the lead. Ellis is second, and then Charlie Collins third place. Rest of your field winding their way through, downhill through the centre S, through Kevin Gasol, the left-hander onto the Reto Costa. Downhill, lunging downhill. Car green, so that's fine. Down into to see the Interlagos. There's Joshua Rogers then, the race winner from the sprint race, still there down in, well, it's actually upper place, up into 7th place at the moment. But look at this, so you see Young is battling away with Erskard.
This is big because de Jong can actually help hold Erskard up. Remember, he was the one that kept Warren honest. Warren's already been cleared by Rogers. De Jong controls the situation, but further back again, it's just madness in the field. Daniel Lafuente has been in the battles the whole time. That bright green card stands out for a reason, but he just likes to battle with anyone who gets to the front. Look at how close they are, and pretty wide, even into a hairpin. That's not always the best way, but they make it work.
We see this every season, and it keeps on delivering here in this series. The close pack action here on the road courses. And well, uphill once again to finish the first lap then. It is Alejandro Sanchez, but he's going to be under pressure from Kevin Ellis Jr. and Charlie Collins right behind them. They've made a little bit of a breakaway from Martin Krunke in 4th place. Krunke just seems to find himself in that 4th place quite a lot here in the early going. Through the centre S, Sanchez just holding on. And I think Ellis Jr. right now, he's got to think 2 ways here. He's either got to think, stay behind, look after the tyres, but he's also got to be worried about that car behind.
And this is exactly it. And not only is it a car behind, it's a rookie. It's a young and eager driver in this series who's going to want to make an impression. We'll see if there'll be any impressions left on doors as we head down into turn 4. 3 wide for 2 rows. Oh. And yes, we are going to get contact. The man I mentioned who's been in the wars, Lafuente's gone flying.
Yeah, that was Lafuente exit corner right, and he is ended up in the runoff there. Managed to keep going though. Out of the race, no significant damage, and he's able to carry on going all the way down the back end of the field. We have lost one car, by the way. Joshua Thompson is on pit road, so Josh not having the best opening round to the championship for him, one of the rookies. But here we are, Vodafone on board, Kevin Ellis Jr. from Glasgow, and he's putting the pressure on your race leader at the moment.
But watch that mirror, because just to go back to that point, Charlie Collins, new in this series, seemed like a very wise head on his shoulders so far, but you're right, we want to see them settle, they want to keep these tires. He doesn't know what Collins is like as a racer. He might have a chance here at turn 1.
Have a look then. Collins is in the slipstream. and Ellis Jr. just having to hold the place and nobody making a move except for Joshua Rogers, who I just saw in the background going side by side with Mitchell de Jong. And in the background of that shot, you see that Rogers has moved up into 5th place. So this is Rogers showing the ability that he showed in the sprint races last season and in the first season of this championship, of being able to work his way through the pack and being able to really push forward. And my timing screen's gone a bit funny because there's a big chunk of drivers suddenly found themselves on pit road, so that indicates that there's been something happen further in the back of the field. But we'll have a look at what happens to Josh Thompson here.
And you can see how immediately as soon as we jump to it, no surprise, further back, everyone's squabbling for position in this feature race. Yeah, it's just not going to work out. Unfortunately, gets absolutely taken out. Fortunately, the red line driver, I didn't quite see if that was Halsey or not, who's been a little bit down there further on today, but I just tapped him on the inside. One already trying to keep clean and out of it, and he just gets taken out by a car sliding through his braking point.
Yeah, it was Christopher Dan Beeks who ended up T-boning Josh Thompson. So that was down south. As up the hill once again they go. And now Martin Kronka has got one multiple world champion and trying to hold up another former world champion here in this race now. Martin Kronka and Joshua Rogers, they're battling away. I think if you're Kevin Ellis Jr., in fact, Rogers in the background of that shot once again. Moves down to the inside up into 4th place.
He's obviously very happy with the car at this moment because he's cleared the Euro last lap. He was drafted into a purple. He's just done that again now with a 34.6, which is incredibly quick. And I think he's going to try and get the move on now. He seems super in the sweet spot for those tires, Connery.
Yeah, he absolutely does. And, well, just had a little bit of the team radio. Kevin Ellis Jr. feeling that he cannot afford to stay stuck between these two cars. He feels the car feels amazing, but he wants to get to the race lead. Otherwise, the dirty air will affect his front end and tire wear a little bit too much.
Thanks very much. Paul, that's interesting to hear just because it was around lap 4 and 6 in the last race when we had the same sort of report from Kevin Ellis Jr. saying that it was incredible. The car was in its sweet spot. But then we also heard toward the end of the race, Connery was telling us that it was almost like he had a puncture. They were so far gone. So I can understand why he wants to make progress now while the car's capable of doing it.
Exactly that, and I think you can see that pressure that's coming from behind. He'll have his teammates working with him, he'll have a spotter working with him, an engineer just saying, right, okay, don't worry about Charlie, we need to make some progress forward on Alejandro Sanchez, because Rogers and Kronka and de Jong are all heading your way. Meanwhile, further down, Reina Sarica, Thomas Tetela and Ricardo Castroledo, they're finding themselves embroiled in a battle for 19th place. In fact, forget about that. Race lead. Sanchez holding that inside line. You can make this move work around the outside and the inside from the next part of the centre S. And that's, well, they're still together through Berbiasol. And this is bringing in now Charlie Collins and Josh Rogers. They're going to go 3 wide down the Ressa Aposta in towards Desida del Lago once again. Will they be able to sort themselves out, keep it clean? And, well, Ellis Jr. finds himself in the lead of this race. Sanchez trying to hang on to 2nd place. And now, Charlie Collins coming with the pressure from Rogers here.
Yeah, Rogers was absolutely aware that he just had to find the hole. He couldn't commit too soon. But that all started leaving the final corner. You saw it coming around Buck's turn. It was Ellis Jr. that actually stayed high on the straight. And while that lengthens the track, it means he gets more time to get up to speed once he gets in the draft. So essentially, he set that slingshot up, and he got the braking done in turn 1. It's so easy to overdo it. I mentioned it earlier. You overdo turn 1, you're going to understeer in turn 2 because you locked up and overheated the tires. So very calculated. We heard the radio from Connery saying that Ellis Jr. wanted to make the move, and he thought well ahead on where they were going.
And well, we were on board there with Martin Kronka on the Vodafone on board as Mitchell de Jong made his way past. So that's up to 5th place for de Jong. Kronka down to 6th place here. But now all eyes on the front. Can Kevin Ellis Jr. pull away? And can he get a favour from Alejandro Sanchez here to try and hold up those behind him? Because Sanchez wants to start off his championship on a high here. He had a tremendous season last season. Unfortunate not to be involved with the final round of the championship to fight for the championship, but he's certainly shown some great promise in this race. Behind them, though, Rogers getting a much better run, and well, that was the back end, I think, sliding out from Charlie Collins, so that's cost him. In fact, he's got a slowdown penalty as Charlie Collins, so that's dropping him down to 5th place.
Yeah, and they're told when they have that slowdown penalty, obviously, you're going to try and be as cheeky as you can to maintain it, but you have to get off the race line. Few laps back, contact deeper down in the field, and that's going to lead to a bit of a drama for 3. Oh, make it 4 drivers. That's a massive hit. Gets the wall as well, and at that point, yeah, it's just good luck getting through.
Patrick
2 red
Holtzman.
line cars, yeah.
Yeah, Patrick Holtzman involved in that one, Alexander Tiber. There was also, we saw the initial contact with Ramstein, as Dane Warren is falling down my timing screen here, so he's had something happen to him. He's down to 21st suddenly, so something untoward has happened to him.
I could have swore I saw him still in the shot when we had the slowdown penalty, so he was still running near enough to the front, and then now he's, yeah, you're right, he has fallen down, so I have to find out what happened.
Well, here we go then. We'll have a look at what's happened to Dane Warren here. Vodafone Replay. And this is into one of the tight right-handers. It's Max Benneker alongside him. This is a left-hander. He maybe just squeezed Max there a little bit there, man.
Yeah, and Benneker's not going to give room. We know he's an aggressive racer. In fact, you want to talk rivalries. Unfortunately, in terms of seeing it on track this particular round, it hasn't come to fruition. But Rogers and Benneker are 2 to watch. They do not like each other too much and have had a few incidents, notably in PESC, but also in an endurance race recently for charity that didn't exactly end happy for everyone. So there's a few drivers that are known to be a little more aggressive. Now, the beneficiary of this is now that Benneker and Job get positions on this, and once again Job has his rear gunner Graham Carroll up to 11th, so Sebastian's only been able to make 2 places, but again it's Josh Rogers from 8th up now to 3rd place. Tommy Oostergaard, Warren's just spun. Oostergaard started ahead of them in P6, has not gone anywhere. In fact, he's down to P8 right now. So that experience last year, we said he maybe got robbed by the qualifying rules and this year it would benefit him. Well, that experience might also be part of that talent, I guess, and skill set moving forward this season.
Yeah, that ability to be able to move through the field. We'll have a look then at the view that Graham Carroll has in front of him. They see 2020 Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup champion Sebastian Job right in front of him. So let's take you a little bit of, give you a little bit of on board with the sights and sounds of this tremendous roller coaster that is Interlagos.
We've got to get on. This is massive. That's Sanchez, who was near the front, just got absolutely smoked on the outside. Huge position gain for the Red Bull boys, but this is massive drama.
Well, this is massive drama because not only was Alejandro Sanchez involved in that, it was also Josh Rogers, your winner from the sprint race. He has dropped himself down the field to 18th now, so absolutely huge. He was making a move. We've caught the back end of it. Here we go. Here's a replay for you to see. This is into Ferradura. You can see how Rogers gets the cut back there. Tries to he clipped the curb. That sent him into Sanchez. That's huge, is that one?
That's huge for all kinds of reasons, and it's gotten from bad to worse. Rogers sliding around. In fact, everyone's tripping at the back, and he's in the wars. He's got, oh my goodness, someone's had a massive accident behind, but Josh Rogers, yeah, absolutely, made the move, got the undercut, forced the pressure on Sanchez, I'd love to see the onboard of exactly the angle because it looked like there was racing room, but they'd already committed to the line and the curve just sent him. That's unfortunately, you have to say, on Rogers. And we just talked about having a great start to the season, having this great home run with the reverse grid and getting so much points over guys like Beneke, guys like Job, guys like Oostergaard, who's now back up into 6th. That's all gone out the window.
Yeah, so let's just take a quick check of how the positions are at the moment. You can see the tower on the left-hand side. Kevin Ellis Jr. in the lead of this one by 1.1 seconds. He needs to just pull that out by another 6/10 or so, and he'll have broken the draft. That'll really help him. Mitchell de Jong, 2nd place ahead of Charlie Collins in 3rd. Martin Krunke, 4th ahead of Zach Campbell. Then Tommy Erstgaard, Max Beneke, Sebastian Job up into 8th, Graham Carroll up into 9th, Diogo Pinto 10th, and Matt Backham in 11th place. So 2nd down to 11th all together here.
And you look at last year's top 6, Dwayne Warren's already had a mistake today. He's fallen off in this race. Kevin Ellis Jr. is looking phenomenal. Beneke gets a massive boost from that incident, but Sanchez and Rogers, that's 2nd and 3rd in last year's championship, and they can't afford to make those mistakes. It's, again, a long championship, but the consistency in this series is absolutely a factor. I mentioned Kevin Ellis Jr. 5th last year's championship, never even won a race. We've got a drag race down the front straight right now, Paul.
Yeah, that's Campbell and Krunke. So Zach Campbell, one of your rookies here, down the inside into the centre S and finds himself in 4th place. So we've got rookies on 3rd and 4th place in this field. You've got Diogo Pinto in 10th place. So 3 rookies here in the top 10 of this race. Here's Connery. What have you got?
Hello, and everyone complaining at the moment that this feels like restrictor plate racing on a road course. So if you're unaware of that, Daytona Talladega on the NASCAR side of things, very much draft dependent, this one. You can see the drafting trained inside your top 10 at the moment. Ellis Jr. at the very front saying that he's struggling to break the draft to de Jong, but that is a very common complaint up and down the field.
Thank you very much, Connery. But yeah, very good point made about that, because these cars, they're fixed gearings. So when you get to, if you're in that draft going in towards turn number 1, you'll be bouncing off the rev limiter.
Yeah, and it's extremely frustrating. I mean, you're always going to have equalization in a spec series, but the one advantage you can get is the toe and being in the toe. So being limited it's difficult. You know that there's more to gain. It's difficult too because tires. I mean, you've just got to find another place to do it. It's a little bit under braking. Study the man in front of you and hit your marks, and it's inches. And at this point, you're not. We're halfway through the race. If you're not near the front, don't look for the win, but look for points. Think championship, and there's lots to be won and lost out there. We've already seen some heartbreak.
Absolutely. Thomas Tetela is one of those who's in the thick of it then, with Jeremy Bootsloop in front of him in 15th and 16th, this battle that we're on board with. So he's battling away, trying to make his way forward. Ahead of Jeremy is Jamie Fluke as well, the Northern Irishman. So it's a Northern Irishman, a Frenchman, and a Finn, all battling it out. That shows the international nature of this championship here out there on track, of how close these drivers are pushing on. But through Descida del Lago and then back uphill towards Ferradura. No positions being changed here in this one, but Tetela trying his best to move forward here.
And Sanchez in 12th will be holding on. You can see him just entering the corner in front. Remember, he's got a massively banged up car, so just trying to do his best to get points at this point in time as we go back on board with Martin Krunke. Krunke's been a bit of, you said the cork in the bottle, Paul, but Connery, what have you got for us? Because there's certainly a train developing.
Yeah, a report on Sebastian Job. In fact, he is unfortunately had to retire the car from the race due to a technical problem. He's dropped from the server here. So for your 2020 Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup champion, unfortunately, round number 1 feature race is going to be 0 points.
Wow.
I mean, you cannot ask for a worse start to a championship defence than having technical issues in the opening feature race.
Oh, think of the timing of this as well. I mean, 9 laps to go. He would have been in this exact battle that we're looking at. Rogers just fell out. Warren has fallen off. Sanchez is he could have made the most of a bad day, and it got robbed from him. That's super unfortunate to hear. Like I say, Krunke's holding them up. the opportunity was there.
It certainly was. He was in 8th position when he had those issues. So, yeah, that is heartbreak for the defending champion then, as they head on uphill. Battle for 16th on the screen. We mentioned Thomas Tettelat. Well, he's in 16th now. Dane Warren, Carlo Castrolano, Jack Sedgwick, who we saw involved in a few of the incidents earlier on in this race. That one around Cover de Sol, and everything just tightening up here. Sedgwick looking to make some moves on Castrolano, so those two looking to switch positions further down your field, and at the moment Tettelat holding that position there. Giassi looking to make some moves, and you saw just in the background of the shot then that Sedgwick was forced wide, and that means that Giassi has made his way up into 19th place, but this battle is still ongoing here.
Point counts, certainly. I mean, even if not for the championship, the top 20 at the end of the season, I said this before, will be automatically qualified for next season. You do not want to lose that qualification spot, because there are a number of hungry drivers that would love to be in a World Championship Series on iRacing. And two of those drivers that qualified this year, Collins and Campbell, what an opening debut for them so far, as we've seen a lot of drama. I don't want to jinx it, but currently sitting 3rd and 4th. That's a pretty solid remark, I'd have to say.
Well, something happened at the turn number 1, and that was Tommy Erstgaard has dropped down, so issues for him, which means that he's dropped down to 11th place, and we'll get to have a look at this one.
I have a feeling Bennett is involved in this. This will be the second contact with him in this race, so you might see some eyebrows raised. It's a tough one. It is a tough one, because under braking you appear side by side, but the fall away and the decrease of the radius of turn 1, you've really got to be in to make it stick. And it's a hard one to call, but Beneke maybe wasn't quite far enough in at the turning point.
I mean, I will say, I mean, I'm not as talented as these drivers, but I've made that exact same move and made that exact same mistake at turn number 1 there.
Absolutely, and the reason for it is, as I say, it's a decreasing radius, which means the corner is quite pronounced, but the turn-in starts a lot sooner than where the apex is actually hit, so it's misleading. You get alongside, and you think we've got miles to go toward the apex, but truthfully, the guy on the outside has already started his turn-in point, and it just funnels you into each other. So it's a tough corner. It's not as straightforward as a lot of the braking points are for a lot of the overtaking opportunities we'll see this year.
Sedgwick then 20th place ahead of Salva Talons with Alexander Walters and Aishan Guvan, who of course drives these cars in real life in the Porsche Supercup. So the Porsche Mobile 1 Supercup driver, he is talented, but he's also talented in the sim as well.
If I'm not mistaken, was a champion in that series in real life. So yeah, very talented in a Porsche Cup car. That's probably the best Porsche Cup World Series.
Let's head on down then out of Curve de Sol, and Guvan will be looking to make some moves here. Great to have him on the grid. And he's got to work his way past, though, because Alexander Walters, another one of our rookies, along with Salva Talons, they're just on the edge of the points here. Top 25 gets you points here. Daniel Lafuente, who we saw get pinged off at turn number 4, he's actually holding that 25th spot at the moment. So quite a few of the rookies showing their mettle out here today.
Yeah, and that's exactly the point. I mean, there's so many talented people that would love to get into this series, and there's a couple of talented people that maybe ran out of it. I didn't see how that started, but we certainly saw the end result as number 10 is well off. That's Gata. He's actually had an incident in the first race as well today.
Sedgwick.
So is it Sedgwick? My mistake.
Yeah, number 10. Yeah, so he was the guy in 20th. He's now down to 25th.
Yeah, that's not going to go well. I hopefully get a peek at the start of that, because it's, as we mentioned, top 20 is where you want to be to get points at the very least. I have to say, Kevin Ellis Jr., he talked about tires and wanting to get away. Now he's trying to break toe. He's getting defensive. He knows it's going to go the other way eventually. 7 laps. That means we've done 14 as we cross now. 6 to go, excuse me. And those tires are slowly and surely going to start to fade off on him.
Yeah, lap 15 here for the drivers, and I've been watching that gap get smaller and smaller. Here's the replay of what happened then. Salva Talons, Jack Sedgwick, side by side there, and Talons just into the back of Sedgwick. That's a bit rude, as the Alexander Walters was involved in that one as well.
Yeah, not the most comfortable situation to be in. It's I get it. You're deep in the field. It's not where you want to be. It's frustrating to be back there, but you've got to keep it in check and make sure those frustrations don't leak through. Meanwhile, this is a phenomenal race up front. We made the joke, our producer certainly made the joke as well. It's all red cars leading, but that's because they're certainly on fire today. These guys, especially guys like De Jong and Ellis Jr. have been so sharp, but it's the rookies that stand out. And Collins, I was a little worried he might be too aggressive early on, which is why I think Kevin Ellis Jr. thought he needed to get away while he could. But he's held on very well, and his car seems very composed at this point in the race.
We've got 2 Americans, an Australian and a Scotsman. That's not the lead into a punchline, that's for sure.
I was going to say, it's kind of a joke.
But this now is really heating up. And Kevin Ellis Jr. again finding the need to go defensive as behind as well. Max Benneker and Martin Krunke side by side into one.
I think he wants to break the toe more than he's being defensive. I don't think De Jong's close enough to make a move, but he knows that if he can break the toe for one, the problem is if you even the slightest mistake out of the first 3 corners, you've got a second draft right here. And again, he wants to get that toe out of the factor, and it's his best way he can think of. It's sort of a preemptive defense before he's actually on his bumper, but it's coming. De Jong is closing, there's no question. Over the last lap, he was a 10th faster. The lap before that, it was a 10th, and it's margins, but we've got enough laps that this will be a battle at the finish.
Yeah, absolutely, is the 3 of them. De Jong taking a little bit of a different line through Ferradura. We're also seeing a battle further down as well. And this really is one of your core cars. That's Sindre Setsource and Thomas Tetela. So 14th, 15th. They're going side by side. There's also Dane Warren there, the recovering Dane Warren then, having to work his way back through the field. He's still in 17th at the moment, so no change there for him as they go downhill through turn 12 in towards Junsao once again. You can see that battle for the lead on the top screen, really working together there, and really working hard as they try and get anything out of this race. The front 3 have actually broken away from Zach Campbell a little bit, I've noticed, so they're just trying to get away here and see what they can do for the final few laps. 4 to go here, and Connery, you've got some news for us.
Yeah, I do. Some team radio from Zach Campbell. He's he's got to pull the belts tight, and this is going to be a bumpy ride for these last couple of laps. Those are the words from Zach Campbell's mouth. So he's going to be looking to try and get himself onto the podium.
Yeah, there you go, Zach Campbell, Matt. He's doing everything he can to try and get with him. Of course, his compatriot Kevin Ellis Jr. in the same team at the front of this field.
Yeah, of the front 4, he was the slowest on that last lap, and you noted it, he'd fallen off, but immediately he's right back on them, and he's got a bit of a gap to Benneker behind them, so maybe just trying to give those tires a breath, but he's in the perfect spot, because if this does come down to a late move, if this battle at the front does continue to close, he doesn't want to be so close that he's caught up in anything, but he can capitalize, so he has nothing to worry about yet. I think he's actually going to be sitting pretty comfortable right now.
Yeah, do you see the different lines going in there into Bika Debata? He wants to try and see what he can do, but he's got to worry about number 11 behind him, the German Max Benneker, who's right on his tail. You can see him from the onboard shot here looking back. Benneker is all over him, he's got the draft, and all of a sudden we've gone for it being a 4-car train for the lead. Now it's about a 7 or 8-car train for the lead here. This is tremendous stuff. 3 to go, and still Ellis Jr. out at the front of your field. It's De Jong, 2nd place, Charlie Collins 3rd, Zach Campbell 4th, Benneker 5th with Krunke 6th place. This is a strong showing from Krunke in this opening round. Graham Carroll has had to make some big moves in this race to be in 7th, with Diogo Pinto 8th, Matt Backham and Mikel Gard, another one of your rookies here in 10th place. But Ellis Jr. is doing everything right here, isn't he? He's trying every trick in the book to break that draft.
Damn, he's close to hitting the grass on the brakes as well. All of that white painted line to make sure he opens the track as much as he can. And let's try as he might, De Jong is not going anywhere. Collins equally is close at this point in time, and it's going to be a very, very tight move if De Jong's going to make one. Said there's time, 4 laps to go. As each one whittles away, though, you sit comfortably in second. You're the one putting on the pressure. Everything's going well, but each lap that goes by, you start to push yourself, and it's now that De Jong is going to start to feel that he needs to make a move, and the pressure's going to be on him. Just as quickly, he can make a mistake and fall out of this top 10 even with how close they are.
De Jong almost needs to make sure he doesn't fall into a little bit of target fixation though as well, and end up copying exactly what Kevin is doing in the lead.
And this is where Kevin's been trying to break draft. You saw last time on the run down to turn 4, Mitchell De Jong didn't just let him do it. He's trying to stay with it. He knows he's close now. So his goal for the next lap or two needs to be figure out the weaknesses, figure out where to gain and how to set this up. We saw Kevin Ellis Jr. did the same thing earlier to Alessandro Sanchez when he went for the lead. He's got to do something similar. It's about studying the opposition right now.
Well, 2 to go then. Business is picking up because Mitchell De Jong is putting the pressure on Kevin Ellis Jr. at the front of your field. A very wide Charlie Collins there onto the runoff. That's not the ideal line. Here comes De Jong looking to the inside of 4. Ellis Jr. side by side. You've got to be careful here, folks. Got to be careful with the power application. Ellis Jr. to the outside. De Jong trying to get the lead, but this is giving Kevin the inside line for Ferradura, but we've seen it. They've been able to run side by side through this double apex right hand there. Oh, and that's going to be Charlie Collins around. The man from 3rd place has gone around, but still, meanwhile, this battle for the lead is ongoing. De Jong still desperately trying to get to the lead. Ellis Jr. doing everything he can. A lock-up from De Jong. This is going to allow Zach Campbell to come alongside. All of a sudden, De Jong's gone from attack to defense.
And this might give Ellis Jr. the break he needs. That little bit of a lock-up from De Jong, and just like that, Campbell limits the track space that De Jong has to work with. He might even get an undercut on the run. And oh my goodness, poor Collins. He was sitting there waiting. He wanted to hold the tighter line so he could maybe get inside under braking and box out De Jong. And it cost him. He lost the rear. He hadn't driven that line all race. But this isn't even done because here comes Maximilian Benecke. He's in the draft. We might be 3 wide into turn 1.
We are 3 wide into turn 1. De Jong trying to hold that outside line. He's made it work, you know. Through to the inside of the second part of the center S, and now he's going to go defensive on Zach Campbell. Benecke is putting the pressure on young Zach Campbell. He's a very young driver here, one of the younger drivers in this championship. Benecke experience, and that's got him in front of him. So up to 3rd place now, up 10 positions for Max Benecke in this race. But look out front, Kevin Ellis Jr. He's got himself an 0.8 of a second lead. He needs to do everything he can. He needs the lap of his life here to hang on to victory here in this feature race. But never say never in the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup. And this here, Matt, this is intense.
Very intense, no question about it. Benecke back up to 3rd place, so he's the one that will be the one capitalizing on everyone else's drama. De Jong is done well to hold on. Again, that little lockup. There's a few things that they can adjust in the car. As we said in setup, it's so finicky, but in the car, in the race, you can play with brake bias. At this point, with tires gone, these guys are going to be dialing that in, making sure they have enough to go late on the brakes, to overtake, changing it each and every corner. And corner 1, the biggest braking point coming up now.
Well, here we go. This is the final lap. They've just got to make it across the line. Kevin Ellis Jr. is going to take victory here in the feature race, but who is going to finish in 2nd place? It's neck and neck across the line, and who does it? It's going to be Benecke in 2nd place. A fantastic drive from Max to finish in 2nd. Mitchell De Jong, 3rd place in the end for the American. But my goodness, what a drive and what a race from the young Scotsman. Kevin Ellis Jr. takes the opening feature race win here in the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup.
Phenomenal drive all the way through. Every one of those guys at the front can be proud of that. And Kevin Ellis Jr., I said it, 5th last year. Big step forward in the championship, but didn't get a win all season. He did in 2019, but it was the other way around. His inconsistency cost him. He might be one to watch. If his rate of improvement can start getting him victories as well, he's going to be in a great position this year.
Well, we'll see the results here then on screen. As it says, unofficial results, but that is the number 1 next to Kevin Ellis Jr. for victory here for Scotland. The German Max Benecke just and I mean hundredths of a second ahead of Mitchell de Jong in second place. The American de Jong third was Zach Campbell, one of our rookies. Great drive from Zach to finish in fourth place. Martin Krunke, experienced hand, and it's been a very rewarding drive for him in fifth place ahead of Diogo Pinto, another one of our newcomers. Matt Backham ahead of Graham Carroll, Mikkel Gard, and Tommy Erstgaard rounding out your top 10. Jamie Fluke, good drive from him to make his way from 22nd to 11th. Alejandro Sanchez will be asking, what can I do? What happened there? He finished 12th ahead of Tetela. Dane Warren, recovery drive for him into 14th ahead of Sindre Setsos. Ricardo Castroledo, Jeff Gassi, Salva Talons, Daniel Lafuente, and Matikai de Soya round out your top 20. Jeremy Bootloop ended up down in 21st, which was a bit of a surprise for him. Alexander Walters involved in incidents, and Josh Rogers was able to make it into the points. 23rd ahead of Ayachan Guvan, David Williams. That's the points. The rest of your field are on the screen here, Matt. But wow.
Yeah, and Josh Rogers, 23rd. You mentioned Sanchez. That was an incident that he got caught up in. Still managed to get 12th, which is very important and crucial for the points. Something happened to Graham Carroll as well, because heading into the last lap, he was in P6, so he lost 2 somewhere in that last lap to Pinto and Mac Bunka. But man, what a race, what a drag race as well for Beneka to get to the line in second. Nonetheless, Kevin Ellis Jr., I have to say, that is a remarkable start to the season and really kept it clean. I love that we heard some of his team radio. I think he's going to join us now. Kevin, you basically said you had a car that was working around lap 6 for your tires and you had to go for the lead. Did you think that you were going to be able to hold it?
With this draft package this season, I really didn't see this coming. Yeah, I saw I had a bit of a gap to Mitchell after Josh and Alejandro had a bit of an issue. And from then on, I was just trying to look after the tyres as best as I can, but still keep the pace up to try and just delay what lap Mitchell got to me. And when he got there, I think he began to kind of struggle through the middle of part of the lap, and then that left me enough of a gap coming out the last corner to be able to defend.
Yeah.
Into turn 1, and yeah, I mean, I honestly can't believe this. It's the first race for RLL Esports and PESC and the Heuer Esports Supercup, and we've come away with first, and Zach got fourth. It's as close to perfect as it really could have gone, I think.
Yeah, Zach being a rookie as well in the championship. Do you think last year, I think, was a step forward for you? Finished 5th, 3 second places, didn't get a win. That eluded you. Do you see yourself as a front runner this season with a win already on the cards?
That's certainly the goal. I think we're still lacking maybe a little bit, like just me personally, compared to people like Josh and Sebastian. But I think with the new regulations this season, with how limited the car setups are, even compared to last season, the field's going to be so much closer. So to be consistently at the front is going to be really difficult. I mean, even the gaps in qualifying, if you ignore what Kwanda managed, from Seb downwards, it was so close. So to be consistently at the front, I think, is going to be difficult. But that's got to be the target. To come out with a race win at round 1 is it certainly sets a precedent for the rest of the season. So hopefully we can keep this up for the rest of the year.
Well, fantastic job, and in the high temperatures as well. Tire management, I'm sure, was definitely a worry toward the end of that race. Well done, and good job today.
Thanks a lot, guys. Thank you so much.
Well, there you go, Paul. I mean, that's pretty impressive to, like he says, come out with a win when they weren't really even expecting it.
Absolutely. Of course, we are here on the Buzz post-race show here on show, and well, joining us now, second place. What a drive from you, Max, to be able to make 11 places at the end. I mean, talk us through that event, because that was sensational.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Was a tough one, especially after qualifying and seeing top 12 positions or top 11, whatever it was. So a bit of anger in my belly there while driving. But yeah, just try to. I don't really know. I was just driving. I know I'm good in the race. I'm much better in the race than in the quali. but I just tried to manage my tires and then see how far it goes. Obviously, I didn't think I could end up on P2. I was hoping for like top 5 position, but then obviously after a couple of more laps, I felt that my pace was there. I was just a bit slower on the straights, which was difficult for me to overtake then. But finally, I was able to make the moves, and especially the one on Mitchell in the end, going side by side, still having the side draft. And how much was it in the end? Like a couple of thousands of seconds. Of a second. So that was really incredible. Not much to talk through. Just try to overtake as many people as possible without ruining the tires, and luckily that happened now. So yeah, just great to be here.
I mean, it's a tremendous start to the season. Okay, the sprint race wasn't the best result that you would have wanted, but being able to show in this feature race of being able to come through and to get such a strong result, you must now feel a bit more satisfied that, yeah, you got that little bit of anger in the belly there, and that just really sort of projected you forward.
Yeah, kind of. I told my teammates, well, just, see it as a fun race now, because I'm pretty sure that people will investigate some stuff afterwards. So I said, just make it as a fun race, and we will see what happens. But obviously, when I started to be inside like the top 10, and I saw that the guys up front are just 3 or 4 seconds ahead of me, then I started to push, because even if it's just a fun race for me, I still want to push the maximum out of it. Feels great now, but I still hope that we will have a good decision on what happened in this race.
Well, congratulations on the podium anyway, Max. All the best for the next round.
Thank you very much. See you next time.
And obviously, the run to the line was exciting, but that means we get to talk to the driver that I honestly didn't know was going to be the winner or was going to end up in third. Mitch, how are you? That was stressful, remarkable, and looked like a ton of fun at the same time.
I'm doing well. Wow, what a difficult race. Kind of the whole event. An outstanding job by the guys in qualifying. I had top 11 Commanda guys. That's insane. So as the sprint race, we had some good battles. Kind of made our way up forward a little bit, and try to set us up well for the race, get some good points. And man, what a battle! There's a lot of random incidents that we're having to avoid. Thankfully, we got through it completely unscathed, and could just go for a good result. And we tried everything we could to catch Kevin. I feel like we got there, but I just couldn't quite get enough of a run where I felt like I could clear him. So I just tried to be patient, look for the opportunity. I thought I saw one open up, and we were just racing hard, and fortunately I just couldn't get it done in that that lap. So once you do go for the battle, you bring everyone else behind you into it, and it's kind of what happened. So we're just kind of holding on, and still, even though we lost second right at the line, I'm still so stoked with that. To start the season with a third place, that's incredible for me.
Well, it was an incredible finish to see it be that close at the line. Good job today, and congrats on a third place in the feature race. Feature race at Interlagos, Paul, but we're moving on next weekend. Another circuit that's known to be quite hot at times. It was on the calendar last year, and there was some hot tempers and action on this track.
Sure. It was a track that we saw plenty of drama for Sebastian Job and Josh Rogers last year. A man who did very well here was Max Benneker. So being able to get a good result here in this feature race certainly has projected him forward as a potential contender in the early stages. I say potential contenders. We're only in round one of the championship here, Matt. So it's how have you found this? This is your first time in the booth. What's been your thoughts of this opening round?
It's lived up to the expectations, but that's what we have to remember. I mean, they drive so hard and they're so competitive. There's still 18 races left to go. We've got to rein it in a little bit, because it's hard to predict anything. And I mentioned at the start of the show, Max Benneker last year had a horrible start in the first round. He had a similar qualifying today, but he made the most of it. And now those drives are the ones that win you championships. So he's definitely put himself in a position where if he can repeat his Barcelona form from last season, he might have a good position early on in the season, and that takes a lot of pressure off.
It certainly does, but big talking point, of course, was the battle and the instant between Alejandro Sanchez and Joshua Rogers. Not just those two, but also Sebastian Job with technical problems as well.
Yeah, that's a heartbreaking one.
The top three from last season, or the top three contenders going into the end of last season, really struggling out there. I mean, is it almost a case of just hit a reset button and start again?
You have to. It's difficult. It's frustrating. Graham Carroll was the opposite last year. Had a phenomenal start and kind of fell off mid-season. It took him all season to recover from that and get his form back. You got to brush it off. I know that this is their full-time drivers now. This is the focus of their career right now is PESC. It's everyone's dream to win this championship as a sim driver. But you've got to let it get off your shoulders very quickly and reset for Barcelona.
Absolutely. Well, you see some of the highlights from today's action that we had here. Tremendous racing from Interlagos. Don't forget, next week it is Barcelona. The racing will be starting 7 p.m. GMT, so make sure you join us in the same place, same time, for what will be tremendous action. But don't forget, there'll be the All-Stars before that. But as well, to sign off, myself, Paul Smith, and Matt Trivett, goodbye, and we'll see you next time.